like that type of,
Are we doing?
Okay, some businesses running it
Do you need anything? Comfortable?
You know,
All right, well. Paying you to have here tonight,
this is acceptable.
huh?
This will work.
Did you hear?
No, Dave told me I had to get down.
What?
That's what he
So
said.
Dave's paying for you.
You are directed to report to his.
Hmm.
Taking out my salary in May.
Yep. Good evening. At this time, we're going to call the Spring Grove meeting to order. At this time, please rise.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
You may take your seats. Okay. Thank you for everyone coming out this evening. Real quick, I just wanted to give everyone a heads up and who is listening online. Tonight's meeting will be a little lengthy. We are going to have some presentations, and you're by all means more welcome to stay after your presentation. If you have other obligations, please, you're more welcome to leave as well. So at this time, we are going to do roll call. Suzanne?
Barshinger. Baum. Here. Ramsey.
Here.
Fritz.
Here.
Shear.
Here.
Stein.
Here.
Waltersdorf. Here. White.
Here.
Wilson. Here.
All right, everyone's in present here. We had announcement, executive session held February 2nd. That was for labor negotiations and legal reasons. So at this time, would anyone like to address the board? Okay. We have moving on to correspondence. So at your desk, you will see a sheet from York Tech. And basically, Mike Ritz and Mike sits on the authority or JOC, I sit on the authority. Both, all members have agreed to pass to purchase land. So if you read through this, Yorkville Tech is purchasing some land that will eventually be used for the LPN adult, which will be paid for. So we'll have an income. And then what that's going to do is move that program out of the school, and that will open it up for more students to participate. So they won't have to be turned away. Basically, if you read this, their lease is up to 8 years. We were told that we probably could break that and offer them a lease up to 3 years. But the bottom line is they have an opportunity to buy land that is adjacent to the school, which will be on the school grounds. So as we always say, that's a plus. I'm going to go by what Doug Stein always says, you never know when you're going to need that land. So hold on to that land. So this is an opportunity for everyone to vote. And basically you have each one has a form to fill out, correct? Yep, each one has about to fill out as yes or no. So like I said, both the authority and JOC saw value in it and did pass it. So that's the correspondence I have on that.
It won't be passed till we get every board member in the county to vote on this
Right.
here.
Mike, do you have anything else you'd like to add on that?
Covered it all.
All right, yes, so we need those filled out tonight, correct? Yes, so if everyone could fill those out tonight and pass those to Suzanne, we'll get those submitted. Okay, moving on. We have district department reports, and we'll start with Paradise Elementary. Oh, these are just the reports. Okay, I'm sorry. The links, I do apologize. So, special committee reports. We have curriculum, and the board chairmans and building and grounds each have minutes at their seats. So you're more welcome to go over those.
Could I hop back a second? A general question, and I'll follow up this with an email. This was just to all of the building department reports. I appreciate all of those. I was largely curious, like, when I saw all of the building goals, they all seemed very, very like general. And so I would like to know how do we determine whether we've hit those goals? And that's kind of all of the buildings. And I don't know how to follow that up. Do I do it in curriculum? Because I'm just curious. There's this very, very general.
So thank you, Eric. That is a great question. So I am not here to embarrass anyone this evening. So going through these reports, my question was, a lot of them were pretty much the same. And some did take the time and go fill them out a little more lengthy. Some did a copy and paste. So that is a great question. So Eric, if you want to ask some questions or have them reach out to him and have them, bring it back to you as the
Yeah,
curriculum chairman.
Yeah, Mr. Wade.
just email you and
Yeah, I would say one thing. We're going to hear from all the buildings here in a little bit. And they're going to talk specifically about their action plans. A lot of them are going to talk about their goals.
Mhm.
So I would say we listen to those. You have questions that we can answer tonight. Great. If not, we can follow up with an email. It would be fabulous.
Perfect. So at this time, Eric, you have minutes at your seat for the last curriculum meeting. If you like to bring anything up to the board, and then we can move it over to Ben since he has notes on that as well.
Sure. At this time, we didn't really have anything to bring to the board. We did have here a presentation from the middle school and high school math departments, and it was a good, productive meeting, but we didn't have anything that needs to be really discussed at this time.
Thank you. Ben?
We had a buildings and grounds meeting. It was really a catch up. The first DSF in March. We plan to have details with all the ad alternates and all the different options to come out and to be able to present, put it in a calculator format. That way everybody has a chance to look at it and understand the differences in costs and pros and cons with, as an example, if we use stone for areas versus asphalt versus concrete, how many areas we're going to pave. We're going to have the number of 3 bays off of the building, 4 bays off of the building. So it was really just a refresher to get everybody up to speed. And so we weren't doing that when we were trying to do what is hopefully the final presentation on the first DSF in March. So we can hopefully put on this thing and get it going for the second meeting in March. So rear access road, we also talked a little bit about at the last meeting. And Mr. Stein brought that back up so we could explore that grant. And the capital projects we just kind of talked about, and we asked that when we get those and we present them, that we can present them by building in the stuff that's due in the next upcoming years instead of it being such an overwhelming amount of information. So the stuff in March is going to be where we'll have all those details hopefully presented.
All right. Well, thank you both very much. Appreciate it. Moving on, we have regular voting action items, and we'll start with budget and finance. Jessica?
Yes, thank you, Mr. White. We have budget and finance board actions requested, just one here tonight. A, template for use with site-based budget preparation, which is attached behind this in your packets as well. So moved on budget and finance.
Is there any questions? Okay.
I did have a question. I was
Certainly.
curious as to who would be determining what ends up on that sheet? Is that the different building administrators and department? Who is deciding what shows up on?
Correct. Have, as I mentioned, I use the term site administrators or site budgets. You can refer to them as departments. So, for example, myself, I oversee the business office. Dr. Ludwig, first person I saw, she oversees special education. Right there would be 2 sites or 2 departments. Each one of us, Hope would have one for HR, Bill would have one for facilities. So, and it's not just for staff reductions, it's for any reduction, anything as we're moving forward with our budget and finance committee meetings, and you have those site or those department budgets and we start to have a conversation about something, it gives that site or department leader the opportunity to put that down as a possible reduction. We talked about this in the Budget and Finance Committee, that over the years, we've had numerous various forms. We wanted to have one form that was consistent through all the sites and all the departments.
And do we know when we will have those to look at in our budget and finance meetings when we're talking about the budget for next year?
So my plan is after tonight, if it is approved, I'll be presenting this to all the leadership team members, all the site or building department leaders so that they can start working on these tomorrow, if possible.
Are we talking March? Mark, is that
We'll be able to start discussing these at the next Budget and Finance Committee meeting.
just prior to March?
Correct. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Eric, the only thing I ask is when they are filled out by individuals, per building, can we receive those instead of being all in one form? So like SGI, Paradise, York, New, you know what I mean?
A different form for each.
A different form for each.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. We have personnel, Nicole. Oh, sorry, I'm rushing. Roll call vote.
Barshinger,
Yes.
Shear,
Yes.
Wilson,
Yes.
Ramsey,
Yes.
Ritz.
Yeah.
Baum,
Yes.
Waltersdorf,
Yes.
Stein,
Yes.
White.
Yes. Good. Now we'll move on to personnel and Nicole.
Personnel board actions requested. Letter A, memorandum of understanding, approval of the attached memorandum of understanding between Spring Grove Area School District and Spring Grove Area Education Association for Deborah Penzinger to provide virtual instruction to SG Flex students synchronously with and in the same manner as in-person students of her class for a period of 18 weeks, the second semester of 2025-2026 school year. Letter B, retirement, acceptance of the following retirement with regret. Leilana Flemings at New Salem Elementary School. B, resignations, acceptance of the following resignations as listed. Letter D, level 5 appointment, approval of the following appointment. Connie Lagore in the Technology Center. She is pending receipt of updated clearances, completed Act 168 disclosures from previous years. Letter E, appointment, approval of the following appointment provisionally hired pending receipt. Matthew Furman at New Salem Elementary, second shift custodian. Letter F, classified substitutes, approval of the following substitutes for the class for the classification as listed. Letter G, athletics, approval of the following coaches for the 25-26 season as listed. So moved on personnel.
Is there any questions? I do have one question. Looking over your list, do we not have a lacrosse head coach? I saw we have an assistant, but I didn't see a.
So those individuals most likely were approved prior than as a vacancy occurred, we generally announce for it and then get board approval. So that's probably why you don't see them on there.
Okay, and because I saw there was to be determined a vacant for track and field, so.
That one has not been filled yet.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. All righty. Roll call vote.
Wilson,
Yes.
Baum. Shear.
Yeah.
Barshinger,
Yes.
Waltersdorf,
Yes.
Ramsey,
Yes.
Ritz,
Yes.
Stein, White.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. And Dave, you want to introduce? Oh, okay.
Nobody's here tonight, right?
Yeah.
That's what I thought. I was looking around, but I don't know Matthew and I didn't know if, okay. Thank you. Yeah, they're not here.
Okay, well, thank you. Curriculum, Eric?
Curriculum board actions requested. There is a trip request. Approval for Mr. Messerschmidt, high school music teacher, to accompany a high school student to the 2026 PMEA Region 5 Course Festival in Lidditz, PA, February 20th to 21st. So moved.
Second.
Okay, any questions? Roll call vote?
Shear,
Yes.
Waltersdorf,
Yes.
Wilson,
Yes.
Barshinger,
Yes.
Ramsey,
Yes.
Stein,
Yeah.
Baum,
Yes.
Ritz,
Yes.
White.
Yes. Very good. At this time, we are adjournment of the action voting meeting. What's that?
So moved. Yeah.
Sorry, need a motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now we're moving on to the director study and call to order. Everyone is here present. And would anyone else like to come and speak? The floor is yours. See none, we'll move on. All right, Eric. Have a long night ahead of you.
I don't. All of these people, these fine people do. So I'm going to hand this over to Steve. He's got a pile.
Thank you. We're going to get started here tonight. We invited all of our building principals tonight to talk to you a little bit about their plans for the rest of the year as it pertains to achievement and growth. We're going to roll through here when we get the presentation going. We're going to start with elementary, and K4 buildings are going to go first, and then we'll go upwards from there and finish with the high school. So we're going to be up here. Amy. Pass it down.
Should come on when I talk. All right. Good. All righty. So we're going to start off with talking about what we've been working on at the elementary level, as far as our goals and our supports for students. One of the main things at the elementary level that we focus on is creating a strong base in our reading and math foundational skills to make sure that all of our students are successful. So here over in the right-hand side there, you'll see the MTSS pyramid, which is what we've worked on at the elementary level. And that means that we're developing a multi-tiered system of support for students. Our focus is on that bottom section, which is the green part that says Tier 1. And that's on strong core instruction for all students. Our goal is to really make sure that what we're doing in our classroom meets the needs of at least 80% of our students. So we've been really focused on doing that through a couple of different things. One of them is getting more consistent at all three of the elementary buildings. We've worked really hard to use our professional learning time with teachers so that they can collaborate and really focus on consistency in standards-based instruction, in our resources, and also in what the educational opportunities that we're providing to students at each of the three elementary buildings. And part of that has also been just in the adoption of new materials and new resources for teachers. So as you know, this year we're focused on common math materials for students in K-6, and that's so that we do have more evidence-based, systematic, and explicit instruction in all of our grade levels that builds and really makes sure that we get that progression right for students and that our Tier 1 is really strong. So with that, we're working really hard on that in math, and then we're also now looking at ELA resources. And that's partially to meet our needs, as we've already talked about at our curriculum level meetings, and then also to meet the new legislative mandates that are coming out in 27, 28, which will require Pennsylvania schools to use an evidence-based structured literacy program. So we're working really hard on that. In addition to that, we have our interventions in place for Tier 2 and Tier 1, and we're really working to make sure that we are meeting students at whatever needs they have. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Fissel, who's going to talk specifically about our goals that we set for ourselves as an elementary team, and that we've really worked hard with our teachers and how we're meeting those goals through our tier supports.
Doug White, you ready? I have like 50 minutes.
Just me. You sure? Before I jump off this slide, I want to go back and just address, I know Eric had a question about, probably our three reports looking identical. And as I expressed to you guys in the fall, we are trying to build more consistency among the elementary. I mean, our job, and to go back to the analogy I gave back in the fall, was that, our job is to build the foundation. We need to get it right before we build the rest of the structure on top of that, which is your intermediate, your middle school, and your high school here, in Spring Grove. If we don't get that right, you're going to start seeing the gaps, and you're going to start seeing that structure start to shake as the students get older. So going back, our reports look very similar because, again, we're trying to build that consistency, something that we haven't really had in our buildings, in these three buildings, since I've come here. And I know some have been here longer, and, they'll shake their heads and say, yeah, we kind of did this a little bit different here. So again, we're just trying to go back, build consistency. So our buildings look similar. So when we produce a product that goes into the Spring Grove Intermediate School, they're Spring Grove students. They're not New Salem students. They're not Paradise students. So again, our reports, our action items, those things are going to look very similar. Another reason for that too is if we move teachers around, and I have a teacher coming from New Salem this year, over to SGE, and they did things differently, they're going to say, well, why are we doing it this way? And then we're playing against each other. And again, that's not what we're trying to do. We're going to go back. All of this, it takes the village. So if we're not consistent in our practice and what we do, there's going to be structural damage there, and we're going to have problems as we move on up through. Now, to address your questions about the goals and how do we reach our goals and so forth. And I talked back in the fall to the board about reading by the end of third grade, and we think that is very important. And what you see up there is based on our Acadians data, getting students, in year 4, 80% of our students, our general population of our students, reaching that proficiency mark of that on grade level, standard, based on our Acadian spring benchmark. We're starting out this year at 65% and or growth. And I say that because it is very important that we had an attainable goal. If we just say, all right, this year we want 65% of our students, reading at grade level, we know that's not realistic based on our former data from last year, 2 years ago, and so forth. So again, we're looking at realistic goals, and we go back to that growth piece, because again, that's another thing. If I can't snap my fingers today and say all students are going to achieve at this level. It's just not going to happen. We know we have students at all different levels, but we also know that every student, regardless of their background, where they're coming from, can grow. So we're focusing on that growth measure this year. We're really putting a lot of emphasis on that, and basically 1 for 1 year's worth of growth for that year of service. If we can do that, as I told the board in the fall, at all 3 of our elementary schools, we've hit the mark. Regardless if the student is reading by the end of 3rd grade, we are doing that student justice, and we're doing our community justice. Now, the end goal, the ultimate goal, is at 2028, 2029, or somewhere in that range. And I say somewhere in that range because, again, the timelines are very stringent. And yes, we need to have that goal, and we need to look to the future. But again, we get tripped up. Things happen. I'm going to go back 2020. What happened? And that shut us all down. I'm hoping that never happens again. But again, there's unforeseen things there that we can't control. So again, in that 28, 29, maybe 2030, we are hitting that 80%. We're getting up there. Maybe it's 70%, 75, but we'll be in a much better spot than we are today. But right now we're focusing on that growth piece and continuing to grow kids. We know that some students have to grow more than a year. But again, year 1, if we can focus on growing all kids, we hit the mark and we feel really good about ourselves. Our teachers feel good, because that's the other part of this, is building that teacher efficacy, that teachers believe that all students can grow. And if we have some unattainable goal there, it's not going to happen. They're going to shut down and say, see, this didn't work. But if we make it a goal that we can reach, it's attainable, people start feeling good about ourselves. And I think all of us can stand here today in mid-year meetings, and we've talked to teachers about where their data is right now, and they feel good, or they're feeling excited. We just finished the Acadians benchmark, and again, their excitement is justified. They've done well, and they're on track right now. Again, if we would have made that some crazy number, a lot of people would have come in mid-year like, oh, this isn't working, get frustrated, revert back to old practices. So again, that's the way we're looking at reaching our goals. Moving forward, there's going to be some adjustment there. We're going to come back probably, in the spring. We're going to look at the end of the year data. Did we hit the mark? Are we good? Are we close? Are we over it? We can adjust these numbers. Next year, have a conversation in the fall about what are our new goals? What do they look like?
what adjustments might we make. The other piece of this is teachers are owning their data. So, if you get down through the focus there, growth, all students use data to determine their effectiveness. There's a data sample sheet there, and can I click on that? Okay. Click on that data sample sheet there. This is an example of what we're asking teachers to do. And again, something different. We used to put data on their tables, and that's kind of where it landed. Now we're asking teachers to go in there and actually look at the data, reflect on it, and record it. There's accountability piece there. You got to record, you got to tell us what you're doing. And again, that's actionable then for the teachers. And I'm sorry if you can't click on that, that's okay. We did meet with every teacher at the beginning of the year, and we just met with every teacher mid-year. Again, reviewing that data, talking about the goals, talking about expectations. Other piece of that goal setting piece is that we set the building level goals, okay, and we kept them consistent across all 3 buildings. But we've also asked the teachers then, when they're doing their individual student performance measures and individual action goals, that we ask them to align them then with our building level goals. Again, so we're all kind of rowing in the same direction. And then our teachers down there next, then they're all progress monitoring once a month. Any students below the 25th national percentile. Now, these are students that will traditionally need to grow more than a year. So they're really keeping a keen eye on those students and making adjustments more often for them. And then that data reflection, that sample data sheet there, we're asking them to complete that every 6 to 8 weeks. Submit that to us. We then go in, look at it, comment on it. And like I said, we ask teachers then in the mid-year meetings and so forth to bring their data and share their data, with what they're doing. So that's our plan there with addressing students, data focus, building consistency among all 3 buildings. All right, Suzanne, you locked me out. Doug, I might be here for 50 minutes. There it is. All right. So next steps, what we're looking at here is math year 2. And I didn't talk about math. I talked more about reading right now. But the goal is to move forward, and we would have a math by the end of 3rd grade. Again, based on Acadian's assessments and data, we would do the same thing. Next year, we'll be in year 2 of, technically year 1 of the full implementation of Reveal. But we kind of look at it year 2, and we're looking at additional professional development. I think that is something that's coming out of this implementation year. We're realizing that the rigor is more than what we've been used to. So again, looking at what we can do to help support teachers with regard to the professional development year 2. ELA then, Dr. Janice has been starting the exploring the different pilots. Then we looking at, 26, 27, piloting a minimum of 2 programs, and then looking at then maybe adopting an ELA program in 27, 28. Again, around that whole idea of building consistency, in our ELA world. And then we're going to continue to use our benchmark assessments, the Acadian, the IXL, the Foundation, UFly, all of our pieces that we have available to us at the elementary school in order to monitor the progress of our students and our buildings as we move forward. And again, it goes back to building that consistency across the board, growing students, a minimum year for a year, as we progress to that ultimate goal of getting all of our students reading by the end of the 2nd grade.
You got to go to the mic. They can't hear you.
He's actually not here, by the way.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, the data form that was there for you to click on that many of you may have clicked on, actually an individual student data form that gets filled out. That student is not making a year's worth of growth, whether that be above level or below level. So that's something that and we go through a child study team process. That's tier 2, tier 3 that we look at and we document. And we also make sure that with intervention, are they growing or not growing at a more strategic skill-based level? So that's in addition to the data reflections the teachers are doing, which are in your board reports. If you clicked on the actual board reports, there is a copy of that overall teacher reflection piece that's done every 6 to 8 weeks.
Dr. Fissel, just to confirm, you said at one point reading by the end of 3rd grade and then another point end of 2nd grade. So can you clarify which one?
If I said by the end of 2nd grade, I'm mistaken. It's by the end of 3rd grade.
Thank you.
The data sheet, it looks like that's fairly new. and unique, and man, I can see that being really helpful to pass down from teacher to teacher. I can see how great that could be. The actual education in the classroom, are we doing anything unique this year to prior years? It was difficult to tell because there was a lot of like good stuff, but some of that stuff I know.
The
you've been doing
focus
it.
in the classroom is that when it comes to meeting individual needs of students is that small group instruction. And that's where we differentiate and we break into, maybe 3 groups, 4 groups within your class, depending on the span. That is where we're looking at in that year 2, and the math and ELA is looking for some additional professional development to help support the teachers in those areas there. So to say we're doing anything spectacular, anything wonderful there, no, there's nothing, there's not a silver bullet, there's not a magic pill there for that. But again, that's where the students are getting their individual need instruction based on the data and the groupings that they would be in.
Yeah, I would just curious because you had those goals and I think they're great, 65, 70, 75, 80. But if we've not yet hit it, what is it that we're doing that will?
Yes, and I can speak because one of the things that we did do this year, and we're really focused on, we talk about 3rd grade, is just like monitoring our systems in place, which is monitoring what we're doing, which we do in that Acadians spreadsheet that's linked to your board report. In that document, there's last 5 years of data is there. And what we've noticed is that students, we've made changes in kindergarten where we've hit the 80%, pretty solid for the last couple of years, but we're having trouble in 1st grade. So this year we changed, we changed what we're doing in 1st grade. We've moved to an additional implementation of a second foundational reading block, which would be UFly, and that's been implemented with reading specialists in all 3 buildings. And if you look at our data this year for 1st grade, we're really pleased because our students are meeting the goal. Basically, the pace is a little bit faster, the rigor is a little bit stronger, and we're seeing that change. We saw it really well in over half the students. So now we are seeing that. So we're excited about that. And we have kind of conversations in place for what does that look like moving forward. So we are monitoring. We can use our data to monitor the systems in place, make sure that things are working. And when they aren't, that changes. And that changes each year based on the students that you have in front of you. But I think that if we continue to make those changes and monitor it, all students can be successful. So that's really our goal.
Thank you.
Teacher isn't speaking because he's saving his voice for the later presentation, but he is with us on all of this.
Cheerleader. All right, good. We're going to move on to SGI.
Too far. Good evening. I'm going to say a lot of similar things that the K-4 administrators had mentioned, but in a slightly different manner. What we find at SGI is, first off, we use a program called iExcel primarily. And with iExcel, they go on scores of 100 or scores of like 500, for example. If a student gets a score of 500, that means that a student is ready for 5th grade content.
You're good.
While I explain.
There you go.
If they have like a 550, we're describing that as they've acquired 50% of 5th grade material. Looking at data of incoming 4th graders or incoming 5th graders and then 5th graders to 6th graders, what we're finding is that not a lot of our incoming 5th graders are, quote, ready for 5th grade content. And that is the link that was attached. For example, at the beginning of the year with iExcel, we had 38% of our 5th graders ready for 5th grade ELA content. We had 27% of our incoming 5th graders ready for 5th grade math content. So those are pretty low scores that they are not prepared according to iExcel for their incoming grade level. We do a mid-year assessment and those same scores increased in all 4 areas, or 5th grade ELA, 6th grade ELA, 5th grade math, and 6th grade math. Those scores are increasing, which is showing we are demonstrating growth with our students. Probably not as quickly or at a rate that
the state says that we should, but our students are growing and that is evidence there. So all of that being said, our focus is obviously on growth and achievement, but what we've noticed with our mid-year meetings that the K-4 administrators had also mentioned through conversations is our focus is meeting students where they are and allotting time and protecting that time during the day to meet those students where they are. That means whether they need enriched or they need remediated. And with IXL, it gives us a very nice score and a very nice indicator of the academic level that they are on, their instructional level, that we can meet them where they are and grow them. The key is finding teachers' time, protecting that time, and giving them the resources and the professional development they need to use that time to their advantage. And then I truly believe we're going to start demonstrating growth when we can do that and protect that time. We do have it now. I would say it's not as protected as I would like it to be, meaning if a math lesson carries over, then we're more focused on the grade level content than we are on where we are meeting those kids where they need to be, rather than pulling small groups and doing what we need to do. So we want to do a better focus on that. And again, that's whether they need remediated or enriched. So that's a lot of the previous slides. Again, as mentioned by K-4, we're looking at Reveal and we're looking at ELA resources with them, getting those supports and resources in the hands of the teachers. Our staff is very lucky. They have two phenomenal administrators. Just that
People should laugh.
not laugh, but laugh. We taught today, so we want to development with our next year and to co-teaching strategies and how to move growth. They're very lucky to have us. Don't laugh at that either. No, I'm just kidding. And then again, those supports on how to effectively use that small group instruction time and meet kids where they are. Oh yeah, I have this, sorry. So yeah, those are kind of our 4 areas of focus: some more supports and resources, protecting that guided math and guided reading time. We implementing data team meetings. We do those kind of on an as needed basis, but we would like to do more what K-4 does and do them on a more regular, consistent basis. And of course, providing that professional development for staff.
Kelly, kind of to Mr. Berchinger's question earlier, can you, and I know you and I have talked about like what would you like to look different in class to kind of get to the things that you're talking about? Can you explain to them what you mean when you say guided math or guided reading? Like, what does that look like for you?
Sure. So our math classes and ELA classes are 80 minutes in length total. The idea is 40 minutes is whole group grade level content. So they are getting prepared for the PSSAs for their grade level material. The second 40 minutes, 30 to 40 minutes should be pulling small groups. Like maybe I have a group of kids that are on a second grade math level. I'm going to pull those kids that have common skill deficits and I'm going to work with them. And I'm going to build up those deficits and fill those gaps, hopefully. So as the K-4 administrators mentioned, I am meeting that year for a year's growth, hopefully more than a year's growth. And that's going to be evident on those IXL scores as well.
Thank you.
I have a question and you'll have to help me understand it seems like the elementary schools are like, they're up here when it comes to PSSA scores. And then like, we've been talking about how to support you at your building as to like, because there's a precipitous decline. Now, is that, and you shared the IXL score data. And I'm just curious, is that like, are the PSSA standards and IXL standards like not aligned? Are they seeing the same thing in 3rd and 4th grade, that their IXL scores are well below, but they're doing well on the tests? Does that question make sense?
It does. So this was going to be short, but now you open that door. So one of the things to consider is there are grade level bands when it comes to the PSSA, and teaching math at the middle school prior to becoming an administrator, this was very evident. So a grade level band is K2, 3 through 5. 7 through 8 through 9, whatever. I only care about till 6th grade. No, I'm just kidding. The grade level bands say a lot. So towards the depth of knowledge of the questions that kids are being asked on the PSSA. So it makes logical sense that the 3 through 5 band, 5th graders are going to have a little bit more challenge and rigor to those questions. It's the top of the band. 6th grade improves a little bit because that's the beginning of a new band. And as you find, 8th grade tends to struggle on the PSSA again because you're talking about the top of a band. So that's one idea. The second thing to consider is every year that a student advances grade-wise, if they have gaps and deficits and we don't fill them, they're just getting larger. So by the time they get to 5th grade, they're 10, maybe 11 years old. You have 5 years worth of education that you could potentially be trying to fill. 6th grade gets worse, 7th grade gets worse. And I know kind of the scores start to look like they're not the greatest in the intermediate. And they're not, don't get me wrong. They are, don't get me wrong. But if you follow a cohort of kids, which I have done for several years, that number doesn't just drop at 5th grade. The number tends to drop year after year. It just looks pretty drastic at 5th grade, but our numbers are pretty stagnant. They're pretty much the same since they changed the test after like 2015.
Intermediate school.
Oh my gosh, please.
School and high school. It goes back to what I was talking about, the foundation. And as she's saying, as they get older, the foundation gets shaky. So it's important that we get it right. I'm not going to say take all the blame. No, but it is important. We are a system here, whether we like it or not. And what we do in kindergarten matters in high school, what we do in first and all the way up through. And again, like she's saying, if you look at our scores, they're pretty good, but we might have 40% of our students that aren't proficient. Well, there's gaps there. And that's where I go back to that growth piece. If we can get to a minimum of a year's worth of growth, then we can work on the 1.5 to 2 years worth of growth to close those achievement gaps. It's not going to happen overnight. Her scores aren't going to go up until ours start go up and become more consistent. If we get to that 80%, you're going to see those scores. You're going to see her scores. You're going to see everybody else's scores start to go up, with regard to that. So like I said, I wanted to talk about that at the beginning and she brought that up, but it's very important that we understand it is a system. And even when they get up to the, to the high school level and those subjects and so forth. So it's important that we build the foundation. So if you want to spend money, elementary's looking.
Thanks, Chip. I'll pay you later.
That was a lot of sense. If you don't have the foundation, you can't fill it in the middle and expect it to end up where it belongs. So I think what you got to do at the elementary school, we'll support, and I think we'll say that'll show up here in the next couple of years. So.
And it's really been a new effort to try to coordinate all three buildings. We have that's in the last couple of years is when we've really started focusing on that. And now obviously from hearing what's going on, we've got a plan now for that.
The fact that all buildings are presenting together right now, I think is an excellent step. So that's great.
Yep.
On the scoring, where you talked about 500 and 550, do we have what our average score was?
Average score?
Mm-hmm.
No. I mean, I could find that for you, but no.
Just curious. It was a benchmark that goes back to what he was just talking about, as we can watch that come up if that's one of the metrics that we use as they're transitioning into that school.
Oh,
Correct.
Mr. Ramsey, we have actually been receiving that when we're going through the curriculum meetings and meeting with each department at the elementary, intermediate, middle school. That is one of the pieces of information they have provided multiple times is IXL scores, Acadience and ELA. So we've been getting a lot of that data, which has been really helpful. So.
Thank you. Got middle schools up next.
Hello. And bear with me, my voice is not the greatest either. I'm getting over a little bit of illness, but hello. I'm gonna have Mr. Loy up here with me. We're gonna present together. So I know Dr. Guadagnino had already shared the data. So you have that. The middle school was not good. I think we were at about 59.6%, which we're not happy about at all. But I'm going to talk a little bit about, or Mr. Louie and I will talk a little bit about our next steps. How are we going to address the data? And what are we going to do from this point moving on to really prepare our students as they take the PSSA and Keystone assessments in August or in April and in May. So some of the things that we do and we've been doing all year is we meet regularly by departments to review PSSA and Keystone data. During those meetings, we don't have the accountability piece, but Mr. Fissel or Dr. Fissel gave me a really good idea with that. But during our department meetings, our teachers are expected to review PSSA projections. I'll talk a little bit more about what that is in a moment. Keystone data and just using that information to help drive their instruction. Department chairs were provided earlier this year projection summaries. So what that is that's coming from our PVAS site. And what it does is it groups our students based on students that are expected to score advanced, expected to score proficient, and those students that are projected to score basic and below basic. So what I did was I provided our highest kids and some of our lowest group of kids, because those are the kids, especially our low, that we can really, really move to help our overall PVAS score. And then our high kids that are expected to score advanced, and historically they've been scoring advanced, we provided those names so those teachers can then help to keep those kids high, because if they're scoring advanced and then they end up scoring below basic, that's going to hurt us. We've also taken that information in the projection summaries to form our intervention groups. So with the middle school, our students do meet every day in interventions, and that's really, really nice, because with our intervention groups, our teachers are very strategic in how they group those kids. So they can group our highest kids, they can group some of our kids that are lower that may need different assistance. They also can group them based on the content need, whether it be math, whether it be ELA, whether it be a science need for our 8th graders that are going to take the science PSSA. And that has been really helpful in using those summaries to prepare those groups. I also provided staff with the state comparable data using eMetric. So what it did was it took both the math and ELA Keystone assessments for both 7th and 8th grade, and it used all the different assessment anchors, it categorized them, and it identified what we scored in comparison to the state. And for the most part, we did score above the average, but there were some specific assessment anchors where we scored pretty significantly below. So based on that information, the departments and the teams are now going to work to embed some of those content areas in remediation sessions during intervention. They're using that to better inform their bell ringers or their closure or just their overall instruction and activities. I also provided a whole staff data review presentation that was held back in November. That was great discussion. A lot of the teachers were not also happy with the data, because that is something that I'm working to build. Some of my staff have the attitude of, okay, well, I'm not teaching to the test. But Mr. Louie and I, we really helped to, we use the example that actually I'm going to take from you, Mr. Louie, but the example of you go to a restaurant and it's scored low. This is our building score. This is how we're rated. So you're not going to visit a restaurant that has a low score, has a low rating, so we use that analogy with our teachers to help them to understand, like, okay, I get it's a test, but it is important. So I think our teachers, based off of this data and scoring very low, they're understanding that. We've also fully implemented our Firefly, which has been great. It has been created by PDE, which also obviously creates the PSSA testing and Keystone test. And last year we piloted it with one teacher and that worked really well. But now we fully implemented it. So now our science, our math, and our ELA teachers are using that. And we have teacher leaders identified to help provide the training for that this year, which has been really, really helpful. We also had for Firefly last year. We had one teacher piloted, and then she was able to compare the data to what then students actually scored, and it aligned beautifully. So we are going to be using Firefly again in the spring. They use it in the fall. We'll use it again in the spring to help best inform instruction right away and in preparation for the PSSA assessment in April. We also decided, I listened to my teachers, and they were like, Fallon, our Keystone exam dates are a little bit early. So I adjusted them just to give our math teachers, our Algebra 1B and Algebra 1 teachers a little bit more time to better prepare our students. So I'm very much so a type of leader that I listen to my teachers. They're the ones in the front lines, they're in the classrooms. If they sense a need and they realize that, okay, we probably can have a little bit more time, I'm going to do what I need to do to adjust the schedule to make that happen. So hopefully with the extra 2 weeks that I provided them in adjusting the schedule, that will also help to better prepare them for the assessment.
Yeah, I can tell you a little bit.
Okay, I was gonna say, Mr.
This,
about that next.
the state started and it's a new assessment system that the state started. We actually, we used to use CDTs and it would tell us strengths and weaknesses of students, but the state developed Firefly. The questions are a little more PSSA-like, and they're finding that the data is much better. We actually heard from the high school during winter keystones got monitored by the state, and one of the state PD people were here to monitor us, and we were talking to him on the side, and he gave us kind of like insights, like, are you using Firefly? And we were like, yes. He's like give a little bit of the inside scoop. He's like, people are finding it much better. So we're hopeful after everybody learns the different parts and how to do it, that we're going to get much better data. It helps the teachers kind of like how Kelly's using IXL and how we use Acadian. It's a little bit of a predictor of how students will do, and then they're able to adjust based on that.
And with CDTs, and Firefly doesn't either. We don't have the writing component, the text dependent analysis, but with Firefly, with ELA, it not only hits literature components, but it hits grammar and writing as well, where CDT didn't hit that as much and only focused more on the literature component. So they're not doing the full outwriting of the TDA, but they're still getting the preparation for the writing piece that they will see. All right, so Mr. Lou is going to talk a little bit more about CDT and Firefly and how we're using it.
Yeah, so as you can see here, these are some of our key focuses moving forward, and that's more usage of some diagnostic and benchmark tools. And that, again, is things that we hear from teachers all the time. Like, we have a lot of things that we've created. We have, exams and tests, but we're trying to utilize these things. And Firefly, as was now just explained, is something that the Department of Ed created. And our teachers have been using that, and then it prints out like a summary sheet for each student that shows each of the categories that they get assessed on. And then they're actually conferencing with students individually and saying, like, hey, in data analysis, here's where it had you score. What did you think you were going to score? So actually trying to have those conversations so that students have some engagement, have some ownership, again, in that learning and looking at, well, here's where you are now. Here's what your score was on last year's PSSA based on this Firefly exam. This is where it's projecting you to be if you keep doing what you've been doing. Are you happy with that? And, and having those conversations that encourage kids to say, well, I need to dig harder on this particular area. What do I need to do? So those are the things that we're doing. Firefly is only for one grade level. So the reason we have CDT for 7th grade science is the science exam is only in 8th grade. So there isn't a Firefly exam for 7th grade. So we're still using the CDT. So, that's a main focus, again, in for our teachers to be able to see where our students, now that we've taught things and we've done these things, how much have they improved? So trying to do that more often during the year so that we have a better idea of how kids are progressing, what they need, what we still need to do, what remediation we need to provide. And then that kind of moves into, the next couple bullets there, really working. And I don't necessarily oversee the ELA side of things. That's more Fallon's area, but really trying to rebalance what we're doing in ELA to strengthen writing and analysis. So there's multiple components, but an area that we've really felt like we needed to improve on is that writing ability and the ability to analyze text. And then as we use more of these diagnostic and benchmark tools, when we look at math, we're really trying to rework math interventions. Our whole entire math department is really working on those things. So again, if you have math period 2, you're teaching whatever is in period 2. But if I have some students based on these assessments, based on just what I'm seeing as a teacher during that intervention period, every single day, we can rework those groups. So a teacher can say, hey, these are 15 kids that I have throughout my 3 math classes. I'm going to pull them all together, during that intervention period and try to focus on specific things that they need. We're also looking at adjusting a couple things in the master schedule, specifically to meet some of the needs of our special education students. Again, that is coming to us from feedback from teachers. So just looking at like kind of where they fit time of day, so there's, just some certain content areas that are a little bit heavier, and we're trying to put those at a time of the day that's more conducive when kids are going to be able to be at their best. Obviously we'd like them to be at their best all day long, but there's certain times of the day that teachers are saying, I think we're going to do better if we have this group of kids doing ELA, at 9 o'clock in the morning instead of at 1:45 in the afternoon. So we're trying to make those changes. And then just overall trying to, working on increasing rigor and enrichment opportunities for all students. And when we look at that growth score, a lot of times we think, oh, we have all, these kids who are taking the higher level courses. Sometimes though, the growth scores on those students are actually lower because they're already achieving so high that, and without getting into a lot, especially in math, they're achieving high in algebra 2, but we've got to still work on like, what are they doing on their PSSA 8th grade content? Cause that doesn't always match up and line up exactly. So just trying to work on those opportunities where we can push kids, and get them to, engage at a deeper level and extend beyond just the basic things that we're teaching.
Some of the other resources we have as well that we've been using, and I know this year we recently implemented a reading intervention program for some of our struggling readers, and that has been great. We've been using UFly this year. We also have iExcel, like Kelly had mentioned. That's something we've been using. That's been great for math, ELA, for differentiation. We also use our reading intervention program of Achieve 3000, Easy CBM, A to Z reading, No Red Ink. So we use other programs as well to really, and teachers use it to help track students and just enrich them, but then also use it for intervention needs as well. Any questions?
I saw that you had, the elementary school seems to be really focusing on that Acadience scores and those reading scores. And then Dr. Peak highlighted the iExcel and math and I assume ELA as well in there.
Mm-hmm.
At the middle school, what you just named a number of sources, and some of those provide scores, some of those provide helpful instruction and
Yes.
scaffolding and things. But what data are you all looking at to determine, like, there's a lot of stuff, whether you're effective, once you're going into the summer for next year, if this year worked?
So I would say we're going to be looking very heavily at our Firefly data. Teachers look very heavily at iExcel throughout the year. But yeah, Firefly would probably be, I know for me specifically, I'm using that as my goal measure in the area of ELA. He's using it in the area of math, just looking to see if we're working to grow students, because they'll have the baseline data that they took in the fall. And then we'll have that data that when they take the test again in the spring, to see if they've been growing students.
That's the benchmark that they're switching to.
Mm-hmm. But our teachers still use iExcel and some of those other resources that I mentioned, just to make sure to hold themselves accountable as educators to see, and also to just, again, see what areas they're struggling in so they can use that to inform instruction.
Thank you.
Any other questions for middle school?
So I'm a little slow at this. So your Firefly is just a tracking tool to see what they're scoring. It doesn't create any better learning or anything like that, but you're using that to see what you need to teach them. Is that
Yes.
correct? Okay.
And what it is, so let's say, okay, so the Firefly is a snapshot of, let's say students took the PSSA assessment today. What would they score? It gives you a snapshot in time, but like Ben had mentioned, it provides a progress sheet per student and also per class. So you can use that. And then it's also based on eligible content area and assessment anchors. So you can use that class report and also the individual report to show what areas the students are struggling in. And then based on that, teachers can then use that for instruction purposes to prepare students to help grow them in those areas that they see that they're struggling.
So then you'll have programs to fall back on to know what to implement.
Absolutely.
All right.
And they can even align it with IXL and, that has, let's say they're noticing that students are struggling in identifying main ID and themes. Okay, well then I can use instruction, but then I can also use IXL as a differentiation tool to focus on that specific area to help better grow and give students the resources for review.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you. Have a good evening, everyone.
All right, high school, you're up.
All right. So speaking of a lot of stuff, you got my slides in front of you. So just give you a little idea where we're going here. There are obviously a lot of things that happen at the high school in terms of data, what kids do what, how they get to graduation, Act 158, Keystones, AP scores. So what I did was I took what we talked about before the school year started, some of the things I mentioned in that report, tied in some of the Keystone stuff of where we've been, where we're at, where we're headed. And then it should be linked to what you got in terms of that initial board report. So back to your original question of some of that, I can answer some of that as we go. All right. So, as you know, the big thing for us, the high school, is people, process, product. So the stuff I'm going to talk about related to scores and where we go, none of that happens if the teachers aren't on board and the kids aren't on board. So that's why we've been spending as much time as we had, developing those teams, the concept of shared leadership, and really, I'm going to try to take as little credit for the successes as we had, because as you're going to hear, most of these things developed organically as we had those people kind of talking and working through the process. The process piece obviously is the curriculum instruction component at the high school. Instruction is collaborative. It's collaborative. So creativity through collaboration. The creativity piece is solving problems. Think of it like this. We give kids two options. When I went to school, it was a lot of here's the worksheet, fill it out. That's not going to do anybody any good. So now it's a lot of that organic thinking, coming up with solutions to problems, in some cases creating the problems themselves, and then figuring those things out. And as we found over the years, whether it be college, whether it be career, whether it be military, they're going to have to work with all different kinds of people. So that collaboration piece is one of those soft skills we can kind of hammer in the classroom. Product obviously is why we're here. So a couple things to keep in mind. High school, the easiest way I explain to people is you have the classrooms and all those pieces, but then you have all these operational components that affect those classrooms tremendously. One of those, as we talked about at the beginning of the year, is the block schedule. So we are unique in the fact that we've already made this huge shift this year in terms of how we do business. To give you an idea what I'm talking about with those teams, ninth grade the last few years has had a schedule within a schedule, kind of a look into block a little bit. So we have a little bit of data out there that kind of tells us we're heading in the right direction. They also were trying to figure out what would they call structured study hall. Great idea. But as I said at the beginning of the year, if there's ways to do it better, we'll figure it out. Well, teachers have turned that into what we call this year as mission control. And those of you that have been at the curriculum council meetings or the reports you may share with each other, I think each department that has come has said something nice to say about mission control and the time they're able to spend with teachers. So again, very excited about where that's headed. The curriculum instruction piece, testing for us in terms of Keystone is 3 areas: Alg, Lit, Bio. The other 3 things up there, we haven't talked about specifically. They were mentioned at the beginning of the year, but I'm happy to say we've actually kind of fleshed those out so I can show them to you today, which are going to be kind of big steps going forward. All right. The algebra example, if you've heard me talk about this, it's a really, really good example of how this data is used, where it's headed. So here we go. Scores coming in for us with algebra, it's a unique perspective because algebra itself is actually a subset of the entire freshman class. You have kids that take all these different math classes. Some are taking an advanced level math in middle school, some aren't, some are somewhere in between. So we have all these different pockets of kids coming to us. We started to see like, all right, there's got to be a way that we can intervene, that we can be proactive rather than reactive. So working with the teachers, we really doubled down on how do we find that information and what skills do we need to focus on. Long story short, we were able to basically track it down to 3 data points that give us a good idea of somebody who may struggle in Algebra 1B when they get to the high school. Now that matters for us because Algebra 1 and Algebra 1B is one of those classes that if somebody's struggling, that means there's a good chance they're going to struggle to graduate. So we know we have to get ahead of that early. So we figured out those 3 data points. Middle school, 8th grade math teachers helped us a ton with some information on skill development. So we identified skills in the high school. Hey, kids, these are things we're seeing that we need. Can you give us some information on where this particular group of kids land? That's where the structured study hall piece came out of. From there, we started to see, all right, there's also a subset even within there of kids that have Algebra 1A who maybe fail or just barely pass that class. So there's got to be one more layer to this. So this year we have a fundamentals class that we put into place that they take in the fall. Block schedule allows us to do this. And then they take Algebra 1B in the spring. So they're getting duplicate levels of skill development before they ever have to see that Keystone exam. That's where we're at. So that now on a building level is full block with mission control operating. So some data within the data for you. This is based on no mission control, only freshmen in block, so time on task. Last couple years as they're doing that, we know they're doing better on the Keystone exam just by being and spending more time in the classroom working on algebra. So we are optimistic. We get our scores probably the state says in March. We'll see if that happens or not from the winter session. But having block, having everyone take and go through instruction in block, then on top of it have mission control for intervention, for enrichment, for everything else, we are anticipating that this trend continues, and if not, even better on into the future. All right, that leads us to ELA and science. These are 2 unique paths. I will start with science because it's the most confusing, and the data has the least relevance to us right now. For what that means is that, just to give you an idea, before the start of the school year, we were anticipating that they would take the new bio Keystone. We found out that that was not the case. They take the old bio Keystone, which they took, and then in the spring, they take the new bio Keystone. So essentially all the data, the numbers we had off of standards and all that for the last couple of tests really don't matter that much because it's going to be a brand new exam in the spring anyway. The good news, what this is saying is we've been ahead of that curve. So for the last year and a half, the teachers, the bio teachers specifically, have been really working collaboratively to figure out how to appropriately instruct with the new STEEL standards. Easiest way I can explain this to you is it moves away from this to more of which one of these is the best fit given this scenario. So there's a lot more analysis involved in the exam. So they've been trying to figure out how to work that into their classes. So again, feeling good about where we are because we've been a little ahead of the curve. The ELA is the one that's most interesting. ELA really wanted to mirror what we did with algebra. It's a great idea. Find the information, be proactive, whole 9 yards. But as those conversations continued, we started to see that there was a bigger issue that we needed to really double down on, and that was skill development. And so it's a bunch of slides there, I know, but it's just one continuous slide is basically the effect I was going for. What you have is this. So if you look at it, grades 9 to 12, there are certain skills that every 9th grader basically needs to know how to do. And then there's certain skills that every 10th grader is going to need to know how to do, an 11th grader and 12th grader, and they should build on one another. It would make sense. So that creativity piece, that problem solving piece is what they should be doing the most of when they get to 12th grade. So we spent a lot of this year with our teachers working in those kind of grade level pieces and within their departments, figuring out these are the skills that matter the most. These are the ones we really need to get on the same page about, and then talking with their colleagues as they go to 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade. So as a kid progresses through, they're building on one set of skills from one class to the other. For us, one of the biggest data points, and I'm super impressed with the teachers. For those of you that may not know education and teachers real well, talking to a teacher about grading is like talking to a parent about their kid and how they parent them. It is super personal. And our teachers have been attacking this the last year or so in terms of what does a grade actually mean in the high school. Now, why that matters here is, let's say you took my biology class and you got an 88 in my class, and you're going to go on to another teacher and take their science class. And and one of your friends took a different teacher's biology class and they got like a 72. And then you both go to this new teacher, and the person who had the 72 now has like 100, and the person coming from my class has like a 67. That's can't happen. There's got to be some understanding of what did the kid actually learn, and do I know what that means coming into my classroom? And that's what they're working on. And that's really hard to do. When it comes to the number of classes they take, the standards they have, but the teachers are tackling that. And it's actually a pretty developed system, which I'm going to show you here in a second. All right, brand new this year. The departments have built and continue to build these scoreboards. So you talked about accountability, where we're at with things. This is a really good one. This is from World Language. They did a phenomenal job. What is at the top is basically their identified skills. So when you think about learning, say, Spanish, German, anything else, it makes sense that you have to be able to talk to people in that language. So that's the interpersonal communication. So they've identified that regardless of what world language class you take, you're going to need interpersonal communication. What's below the second half is they took that and they broke that down into Spanish 1. So regardless of who teaches Spanish 1, they can have a collaborative conversation and say, are these kids learning these skills? Where are they? What can we help them with? What targeted intervention can we have? So each department is building these out. Right now, it's a little bit of the wild, wild west because they're going to come up with way better ideas than I'm going to put on all of them. But on the 20th, we're going to come together. We're going to start building this out, start looking at where do some of those skills overlap. Because in the high school, the beauty is, yeah, you have ELA class, but you also might have a STEM class. You might have world language class. You might have an art class. You might have PE. And if all these people are talking about the same general level of skills, you don't have to be in ELA class to work on interpersonal communication. All right. Now, I'm going to throw some love to Mr. Barge. He's in the crowd tonight. He's right over there. If you don't know who he is, he's sitting right there. He's worked a lot with our teachers on this. So when it comes to data and when it comes to the accountability measures to high school, what you're looking at is a student dashboard. Basically, any teacher at the high school can go into the student dashboard and they can find out what they need to find out about their students. Attendance, behaviors, academics, trends. This gives them real life, up-to-date working data. That matters a ton in a world where we might see our kids for one block. And we may not meet with a team of teachers outside of us needing to discuss what's going on. So this dashboard provides a ton of data that allows them to make that target intervention. That's going to help on the back end when it comes to how do we look at maybe an AP score or a Keystone score or an SAT score, any score you want to look at. You take it one step further. What they're working on is this, which is now you can go one layer into that dashboard and you can look at this and you can say, okay, so the first student that's up there has a risk score of 7. That's somebody we got to talk about. We got to get counselors involved. We got to get on the horn with the administrator, the parents, whatever, because right now they are headed down the wrong path. Having this information at the teacher's fingertips allows us to intervene in a timely manner. And that's really what matters at the high school. Is with that remediation enrichment period during mission control, they now have that way to target intervention rather than just be kind of a random everybody do this, which is kind of what we were figuring out the last year or so. All right, so going forward, long story short, basically, we'll see what the results come in the winter. So we'll get those in March. We'll get a chance to see what this new Bio Keystone looks like in the spring. We'll have another round. Once we get all that data back over the summer, now we'll have a really good look at these changes that have been made. Where do we need to adjust? With the skill development, with the scoreboards by department, that makes us flexible, that makes us nimble, it makes us able to kind of move that giant iceberg of the high school a little bit easier, and within by department. So that is a lot of information in a few minutes. What else do you need to know? Go ahead. Yep. Yes. It absolutely would be part of that conversation. What's not on there, because I wanted to try to figure out a way to show it to all of you, is all the demographic information that goes with the student. So as long as it's kept to the parent and the team, it's good. If you start clicking through there and looking at everybody else, that's where it gets a little, yeah. Yep. Yep. Yep.
You're right.
So data form that during the elementary is the start of that form. It's just not in the app. It's different. It's in Google. So that's there. And we share it with parents in our meetings that we have when we bring them to the table to discuss the growth of their student or lack thereof. And then that transitions, because I have shared over the years, it's taken 3 years to create that form. That form is now shared with SGI as they go on to 5th grade and so on.
Good. Any other questions?
For now.
All right, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
We are going to transition here to our next topic. Dr. Dietrich has been asked to come and talk a little bit about SG Flex, give us an update of kind of where things are currently and where we're headed. And with the voice he has left, he's gonna go through his slides.
I do my best, guys. I apologize if you can't hear me, just let me know and I'll try and speak up. All right, here to talk a little bit about SG Flex. Oh, you kept all my transitions in. Thanks, Suzanne. All right, so actually these numbers are already not accurate as of today. We had 2 more students who I was contacted about who are interested in SG Flex, so numbers are actually increasing a little bit. But looking at currently enrolled 61, as at the end of this week, it'll be 63, so a total of 76 for the year and 78. Why the difference? Students move, they return to in-person learning sometimes if they're not being successful in the program. Some students were only enrolled in 1 semester and they completed their courses and either had planned to come back in person or they finished their graduation requirements. And there's different ways of looking at this. I put it on here as estimated savings because if these students are leaving us and going to typical cyber charters, that's the number that we're paying out. Fortunately, we're not because they're in our program. This does not include the other students who are part-time. And so I just, again, another estimated number of potential savings there. Looking at growing enrollment over the last 4 years, again, that number would be 78 for 25, 26. And I would project that we're probably going to push up over 80 before the end of the year this year. Some of the things that we're doing, one of the things that we have to be careful of with SG Flex is making sure that we're offering enough courses for our students to be able to have a full high school, actually middle and high school career in SG Flex. And so we're continuing to look at what courses can we offer to offer different opportunities for our students. So we added these courses this past year. Just give you a second to review those. And kind of the way this process works is I go to the teachers and say, would you be interested in supervising, facilitating this course? How does it line up with things that we're doing in the high school? Because one of the things that we do try to think about is if a student does leave SG Flex to come back into the building, how do we transition that student? That's one of the things that's very nice about SG Flex, having that flexibility. And so we try to match those things as much as we can. And then looking at for next year, having conversations, expanding into art. We currently don't offer any art courses in SG Flex, looking to potentially expand some music, and then STEM and world language. We do have a growing number of students who are taking Spanish with us this year. I think we're up to about 8 students. And so I would like to be able to have the opportunity for those students to continue in Spanish next year. And so working with the world language teachers on that.
Hey, can I ask a quick question?
Go ahead.
The courses that are being offered, who is the curriculum provider for those courses right now?
So the platform that we use, great question. It's called Imagine Edgenuity. It's an online platform. We actually purchased through a consortium with the LIU. And so we get a better rate going through the LIU through Imagine Edgenuity. There's some other options out there. I wouldn't argue that they're any better than what Imagine Edgenuity, and they're actually continuing to update their offerings. They're now to their next level, which is called EdgeX. Those programs are more interactive, more videos, and so the students it's more engaging for the students. One of the things that we're doing, is encouraging the hybrid model. Why? Because the best of both worlds. I mean, you listen to Christian talk about the different opportunities that we have at the high school. We have the opportunity to have a flexible schedule for students where they can come in for a few of the classes in person that they might not be able to get in SG Flex, especially a lot of the hands-on classes that we have, or some of those upper level classes where they really feel like they need to have a teacher in front of them. For example, we have quite a few students that are in AP classes that come in person for those AP classes, and then they're taking other classes through SG Flex. Access to in-person staff and the peer interactions are huge as well. And then obviously it keeps students connected to our school. Challenge with the hybrid model is we provide transportation one way. And so that presents a problem for some of our students and their parents. We can either bring them in on the bus in the morning and they need a ride home in the middle of the day, or they need a ride to school in the middle of the day and we can take them home in the afternoon. Not having that midday transportation is a no-go for some of our families. And so that's something that we continue to explore. Thank you. It's not going to do anything, but thank you. Nice gesture. Other obstacles to just SG Flex and just for our district in general to think about the competition. This is what they do, right? You know, we are staffing SG Flex with the staff that we have. And they're doing a phenomenal job with the time that they're being given. We have not just me, but Meredith McCurry Howard, who's a building admin assistant in the school counseling office at the high school, is super involved. Brent Barge, the school attendance officers, which are very much involved, and then all of our teachers. This is something that they're doing in addition to. When you look at the cyber charters, this is what they do. They're paying for Wi-Fi for families. They're handing them devices. They're paying stipends for in-home tutors. All right. And then they have those synchronous course options for students. And not a conversation that we're going to have here today, but at some point I'd love to sit down and have the conversation. What is going to be the future of synchronous courses for SG Flex? By not offering those opportunities, we're removing some of that access. And yes, we can do that in-person piece, that hybrid model. Then we got to overcome that barrier of the transportation piece. And there are just some situations, like a recent situation where, you know, the kid can't come in because of a medical issue in the home. We want to be able to create some of those opportunities for our students. Another option our students have is Lincoln Edge. This is a better option for some of our students. In fact, all of our K-6 students go through Lincoln Edge for SG Flex. The reason for that is we don't have the staffing at the K-6 level to be able to supervise those students for SG Flex. We had tried it in the past. It was cost prohibitive and it was just too much time for the teachers. And then looking at cost, it's approximately half the cost, which is great. And then they are a little bit better staffed to serve students with IEPs. And so if we do have a student with an IEP, often we'll have that conversation. Is this student a better candidate for Lincoln Edge rather than the SG Flex program? If we feel like we can service a student through SG Flex, then we'll do that. If we feel like we don't have that ability in that program, then we'll make that recommendation for Lincoln Edge. And then they just offer more courses in the Lincoln Edge program. They get into the CTE, so they have the staffing for CTE programs in Lincoln Edge and so on. And then again, just some basic numbers for you. It's a little more than half for the cost. Changes in regulations that have helped. I know Mr. Zapp and Mrs. Lepa have talked about this a little bit. This is a big one for us. In the past, if we've had habitually truant students, as we've enforced attendance policies, a lot of times what would happen is families would have those students exited from our schools and put into cyber charter schools. They can't do that anymore. Any habitually truant student is a student that has 6 or more unlawful absences. And believe it or not, some of our students hit that mark pretty quick. And so those students can no longer leave to go to a cyber charter school. And that is a huge win for traditional school districts across the state. And then next year, the state is requiring check-ins for students. So students that are on pace 1 to 2 times a month, those check-ins can be live Zooms where we're seeing kids' faces. It can be in person. If students are off pace, meaning they're falling behind in their courses, then we're going to be requiring them to come in a lot more for those check-ins to make sure that they're getting on pace. And then some ideas for the future. I know I've been in conversation with Mr. Earhart about a cyber cafe option. We have this beautiful space, the IAC, but the high school, is that a spot where a student who is in person for some of their live courses could also just stay at the school? That eliminates the issue of the transportation piece for some of those students. Could they sit in the IAC, work on some of those online courses independently? We've got to have the supervision, the staffing to be able to do that. Right now, we don't have that space open all 4 blocks of the day. And so that becomes a little bit of a challenge. That's something that we're having conversations about. That can be by choice. That can be by assignment. If we have a student that's falling off pace, hey, you're going to come in person for a while until you're back on pace. And now you can go back out again. And then we already talked about the challenge there. And then that midday transportation piece, is there an opportunity for us? How can we figure that out? That's another conversation for a later time. Questions for me? Throwing a lot at you. Yes. We give our students devices.
Cyber charters. Can someone repeat his question? Because he's not talking into a mic, so anyone.
So he's asking, so you're asking cyber charters pay for the device and the Wi-Fi. Are we doing that? If a family does not have access to Wi-Fi, we provide them with an air card. Yes. And we provide all of our students with devices, and not just the iPad, for our PE, our online PE class, for example, they get not a Fitbit, it's a Polar Watch. They use a Polar Watch for that. So yeah, I mean, there's some, I didn't get into specifics there. There's a little more than just, it's laptops, it's printers, it's all kinds of stuff.
The only question I'm a little confused on is the transportation. We only supply transportation one way?
What happens is for the hybrid schedule, for example, like let's say, for example, I have a kid who's coming in for periods block 1 and 2. They can ride the bus in, but there's no bus after block 2. They'd have to wait until the end of block 4. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And we live, you guys know the size of our district, 94 or 96 square miles. You have, let's say we have 10 kids that want to do that midday. You're driving them to Seven Valleys and Paradise. It's not efficient, right? So how do we figure that out? I think that's something to have a conversation about.
So first, I love the cyber cafe idea. I love that, and that would help solve some of that problem if a kid had a place to be. What I am hoping, so I think that this is currently solving some of the problems we're trying to aim to solve, which it seems like we're really aiming for some flexibility for kids and for administrators, because you need that at times, and a cost savings. But I don't see us trying to compete with cyber. And I'm not saying that we want to open our own cyber and bring in thousands of kids, but we don't provide them with, and you just gave, 3 very simple things that those other schools are doing, or this other online cybers are doing. I'd love to see I think too often in the district, we talk about cost cutting and cost savings, and I'm all for efficiency. But sometimes we need to spend a little money to then eventually save money. And I would love to see what what your true ideal would be. I mean, the two suggestions, the transportation and cyber cafe, those are, I mean, they're not hard. They're not that difficult. I feel like it's like low fruit, hanging fruit. But I'd be curious to see what it would look like if we had a true competitor, because every single time that Mark and Jen share these online cyber, like the percentage of kids in online cyber goes up. It's not like it's an even number. I keep seeing that. And pulling kids back, it's almost a fool's errand. What we really need is an
Yeah,
alternative to keep them here.
Yeah.
And so I would, for me, I know I'm one of 9, but I would love to see what that like hairy audacious goal would be as to what SG Cyber is. And then we can talk about what's feasible and what's not feasible. But I don't know. I think SG Flex is serving its role, but it's not serving. I don't think it's going to keep those cyber kids here, at least many of them here. And I think we can just offer a much better product if we had more dedicated. We have a bunch of staff that are helping, but it's just a very different beast.
Yeah.
I'll make a comment. It won't be a question. I think we need to get a hold of our solicitor and get other school districts to stop this thinking cyber school for milking us for what they're getting paid. That's what's wrong. When we collect students, get money in for students to educate them, and we can do it for a certain dollar. If them parents or the kids want to go somewhere else and it's costing them twice as much, they should have to pay the difference. And there's no reason legislation can't make that happen. So I think we need to focus on that. It's just terrible how they're raping this school districts. I agree. Guys are doing a great job. It's looking better. It's something we got to focus on, but I just think some people they're just not, like you say, they're not going to come our way.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you, Dr. Dietrich.
Steve, I have a question for you, please.
Yes.
And I'm not saying, I understand these presentations were supposed to not be 50 minutes each for Mr. White's sake. What's the role of our curriculum leaders? Because I don't feel like I heard us talking about if an individual teacher is getting better results than the other people of the same grade. How are we utilizing our curriculum leaders to identify that stuff? And in hearing this, I understand a year's worth of learning is a goal for us to get up to. But if we have people that are behind to the point that was made, they're going to stay behind. We're just going to keep it from getting worse. The other thing that I didn't hear that and I don't need a long explanation. It was just two things that I was thinking about are we differentiating the cadence of the analysis of the students that are farther behind? Because we need to make up more ground with them. And one example was 6 to 8 weeks. For students that are behind, I feel like that's too far apart to be able to close the gap and to be able to learn. I'm not saying that to be insulting. Those are the two things that I didn't hear. And I work on cars, not kids. But when I have people that are behind, we increase how often we audit them and we put them with their peers is how we do it. And I just didn't hear it. Again, not saying those things aren't being done. It was just two things that I took away from the overall presentation.
Okay, I think I got 3 things there, but the first question is, what do curriculum leaders do? The curriculum leaders' roles are they're not supervising, and they're assisting the administrators who are in charge of those areas in writing and evaluating the curriculum. They coordinate their colleagues we used to have a 6-year curriculum cycle. Now it's a 5-year curriculum cycle. So each year in the cycle, they're responsible for different things within the curriculum, whether it's reviewing what's there, updating, then in the 5th year, they rewrite. They're the kind of the key point person there to kind of coordinate that. They also help with running meetings. That if we have department meetings or curriculum meetings, they would be the person who's running those meetings to work with their colleagues. They're also sometimes, depending on what we're doing, helping with the professional development that comes along with whatever we're doing at that time. So that's their role. They get a little bit of a stipend to do that. Their main role still as a teacher. It's just a little bit of an extra duty that they take on. In the old model, you might remember when we weren't in school, they had department heads, and we still have some of those. They're the K-12 departments. They're more of like in charge of everyone in the art department or everybody in the PE department. We don't have that as much because we've broken it down into K6, 7, 8, 5, 6, whatever it might be, and then 9, 12 at the high school. So that's kind of what they're doing. The second part of what you're saying is you're absolutely 100% right. If a student is already behind, we've identified them as being behind, and we're successful in growing them for a year, they're going to continually stay behind. And Mrs. Peak referred to that as ideally we want to try to grow them more than a year for a year, but we have to get them to a year for a year first. So you're 100% right. If we wanted to try to get them all the way caught up, we're never going to get there if we don't get more than a year. But that's kind of the starting point, is to get everybody to a year. So you're 100% right there.
We have 6 teachers in the same grade, and one is consistently getting the kids farther along than the others. Do we have anything in place for the teachers of the same grade to be able to, at benchmarks throughout the course of the year, to figure out why some are ahead versus other? We're doing the analysis, and we're doing these sheets, we're doing these scores, and if we're not, are we going to look at if somebody's continually staying out in front? How are we cross training, or I don't know if that's what we want to call it, but how are we figuring out why one person is consistently outperforming the others? Because sure, you can have a different group of kids that are going to perform differently, but the idea of collectively working together, we heard the phrase a couple times, it takes a village, seems like an effective way to understand what one person may be doing that somebody else isn't.
We are continually looking at that data. Sometimes it's not consistent, but when we do have people who are consistent, we are trying, all administrators we have these conversations all the time and trying to get at what is going on in that classroom and then trying to transfer it. I wish it was as easy as that. Teaching is not, is some of it's art, some of it's science, and it's not always as easy. You're 100% right in what you're saying. It's a lot harder in practice than actually it seems like it should be, but it is very difficult. But that's what we're trying to do. You're not wrong. It's what we're trying to do.
I said when I started, I said, I'm not saying we're not doing this. It was just, I didn't hear it. So they were shortened presentations. It was just a question.
I guess I have one comment that may not be well received in this room, but I'm curious about it because in my world, I sell medical equipment, right? So anytime I am charged to do something that I call administrative work, expense reports, that type of thing, where you have to spend time in your office, red time is what we call it. I'm curious in terms of all of the effort around the data, reviewing the data for our teachers, how much time of their day do they spend reviewing the data, chasing the data, searching for the growth number, right, as opposed to teaching? And do we have teachers that are having difficulty balancing those pieces? So I understand the data, I understand how important it is, but more importantly, teaching, engaging, interacting with our students, making meaningful connections with our students, I think probably transcends all of it, right? So just want to see and get your thoughts on that. Maybe not tonight, but eventually.
I'll just have one more comment. I really appreciate these presentations tonight, Doug. I gave you a hard time about having these presentations, but it's good to know what is going on. It's good to know where you people are at, and it's good to know that to hear that you people care, because we don't talk about this stuff in school board meetings. And I'll tell you, I really enjoyed tonight. I mean that from the heart of my heart. I know you people are here for the kids, and it's just an awesome thing to see and to know, and it just makes this all worthwhile. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm going to very quickly pipe up, and I'm going to respond to Nicole. I can't speak for every single teacher, but I speak to a lot of teachers, and I was in a classroom. That data that is being, teachers aren't doing that during the day. They don't have the time to do that. It's during the evening. So like many people are on this board talk about difference between private and public, and teachers getting a hard time sometimes. It is crazy how much time teachers spend on the weekends, in the evenings, grading things, putting data together to build their lesson plans. So when we look at sometimes like, oh, they have 2 months off in the summer, and we're like, how nice is that life? But do that job for very long. They don't have the time to do that stuff, the data stuff during the day. It's very difficult to find that time. So it's in the night.
All right, any other questions? So, first of all, wow, thank you. Big thank you to everyone. I mean, at the end of the day, our teachers are the motors of this school. From the principals to the assistants to all the admin, from Steve to Michelle, we're like a manual transmission. You guys are shifting the gears to keep motivating everyone. Chip, thank you so much for bringing to light about the consistency. I've been saying it for years. It doesn't matter how a teacher teaches, just teach the same thing. So we do have consistency through all the schools. Real quick, I sat in with curriculum with a math program. The enthusiasm, the excitement that they show. But one thing they did say, all of them, was, we need to seriously look at another curriculum leader because a lot of them can't take on the task. So, as I know the board, we all talked about it, but that is something down the road we're seriously going to have to look at. So again, I applaud every one of you for doing the presentation. I think 9 of us can truly say we wear our hearts on our sleeve, but that's why we're here, for the education. There's many times we get involved in our building projects or this or that, and we kind of lose sight. So kudos to everyone. Thank you. Okay, moving on. Floor's still yours there, Eric.
We're gonna go to the calendar. Yeah, we're gonna talk about the calendar for a little bit here. You have a couple different links and a couple different things in front of you. Just a little background. So we go through a process every year of putting together different options of the calendar, and then run those options past all the different groups, the leadership team, the teachers. We've talked to different board members. This year we started and we had 3 versions, and then we quickly ballooned to 6 versions, and through a series of different meetings and much discussion, we've narrowed those choices down to 2. And what a recommended option, which we'll talk about here, is option F. But you have copies of option A and option F in front of you. The memo talks a little bit about the qualities or the characteristics of that calendar. I'll just give you a short version. Option A, the calendar with option A is pretty much a traditional calendar. It's pretty much like this year's calendar, with very few changes, just updating it for the new year. Option F is a hybrid of sorts, with trying to incorporate all the different suggestions that we've heard from different board members and from staff members, and trying to keep all the things that people like and try to eliminate the things that they don't and try to compromise in between. So that's what you're seeing there. Option F includes the early start date for our transition grades, kindergarten, 5th, 7th, and 9th graders, which has been a practice in the last couple of years, and it's been very effective. It includes 2 half days, early dismissal, what would typically be an early dismissal days, but they've been moved to a virtual learning on those days. So what that would, instead of having an early dismissal where students come in and secondary would leave at 10:30 and be bussed home. And then elementary would be getting out at 11:30 to 12 o'clock. They would have a virtual day for the morning, and then the teachers would have their in-service in the afternoon. It also includes some traditional snow days. So there's some makeup days there if we were to need it. Both of the calendars contain all staff in service on 2 days built in. Historically, we've had in-service days that just involve the teachers, but we found that we have many opportunities if we plan ahead that we could have all staff in on those days and have things that we could use those days for. So we've included that. And then in keeping with our new collective bargaining agreement, we have self-directed days that we have to be placed in at marking period, trimester date, ends of beginning of marking periods and trimesters. So they're all in there. All that being said, as we said before, option F is our recommendation. I can answer questions based on all that. Ideally, what we would like to do is get your feelings on them and hopefully have a calendar that we could bring forward for the next meeting. There is one additional thing to discuss, and it's on the second page of the memo. Historically, we've had some questions and some back and forth with our K-4 staff about conferences and when to have them and the format to have them and such. We did some surveying of them at their request this year. And a majority of them indicated that they would prefer to do their fall conferences in the afternoons and evenings during 2 days in November. But that would require, if we chose to do that, that would require 2 more early dismissal days to be added to the calendar. They are not on either version of the calendar right now. They could easily be put in, but if that's not something that you want to support, then we would not put that in. If we don't do that, then we would go ahead and do it. Their second choice was to do it kind of similarly how we do it now, and they'd have it over 4 different nights on a different week in November. So kind of multiple things, feedback on option A and F, and any feedback on the idea of adding those additional ones for conferences, and anything you would like to share, we can get ready for possibly bringing a calendar or any changes that you might have.
Yeah, Steve, I have a couple questions. I'm looking at just draft F, and I know this is the preferred, and I really appreciate this. In some of the feedback, it's nice, and I'm glad everybody had a chance to look at it. My first question would be, for example, in October, there's a day off on the 12th and then 13th as well. It's in a row. What's the school of thought in not doing the same thing in February? So there's a day off on the 15th and then there's a day off the next week on a Friday.
That the wrestling tournament.
26th of February.
It is. Okay. So it's the wrestling tournament.
That is.
Okay.
That's the why.
Thank you. My next question is so we're getting into that weird part. We had it this last December and now where there's a few days before Christmas that we would bring students in. Historically, we've heard from teachers and everybody else, that's a tough week. Is there a reason we couldn't take a day, for example, from like November 30th, where it's just this Monday off that week and actually have students not coming in that 21st and 22nd and adjusting the calendar that way?
November.
That's
November 3rd. You're saying November 30th? Yeah, that's just historically a day that we've had off, but you could shift that, but I'm not understanding, where would you move it?
I'm talking about the actually having 2 full weeks in for that winter timeframe off over Christmas and New Year's. Just
So we're not coming in the 21st or the 22nd, is that what you're saying?
yeah. And my
It's just, yeah, they just have to come from somewhere, and we're trying to jam it into the time you have.
Yeah, I'm just, I mean, it's not 100% necessary, but when we think about expenses and then we think about, students historically that week anyway, coming in for 2 days is tough on the teachers and everyone.
It's a challenge right now to start when we start and not go into June. So we would be either taking a day well, have to find 2 days somewhere. One could be the 30th, I guess, but then you need another one that's coming from somewhere else to plug that hole. Otherwise, you're not going to fit it in to that.
What's the total number of student days? So they vary on each of these drafts. So how many?
And if you look,
3rd of December is the difference between the two.
in draft F, we have 178 school day teacher 178 student days, which is really 179 if you count the first day with kindergarten, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. And then we have 189 teacher days, which is what the contract says, because we have a day of duties. So I'm sorry, what was your question?
So what is the total number of days we have to have on the calendar?
There aren't that change. We used to have forever and ever and ever. We had to have 180 student days, no matter what. That is no longer the case. We have the ability to go 180 days, or we have to go 900 hours in the elementary, or at least 900 hours in the elementary and 990 at the secondary. We have those hours and we're well over those, which gives us a little bit of flexibility with snow and makeup and all that kinds of stuff. And we don't have to hit 180. So it's to answer what I think is your question, could we just make those days off and be okay? We'd be okay. It's just how many days what do you want that base number of days to be? It used to have to be 180. We have tried to stay close to that. You can keep going down.
Steve, if we remember back to the teacher contract, one of the things that makes it a little tricky is that in the last teacher contract that we negotiated, we're giving all teachers time to finish up grading, and that's like built into the calendar to finish up all the grading for their trimester and for the marking period.
Each marking period in each trimester is a half day that we can't
that's
touch.
A bunch of days in here that are just inflexible that we can't really move around too.
Yeah, they're very inflexible, and that is part of the problem. The other part to answer your question about number of days, we have a bus contract that says we are going to pay for 175, Mark, tell me if I'm wrong, days of transportation. If we drop below that, we're still paying for 175 days of transportation. So to answer your question about draft F, if we drop 2 days off just to make a longer holiday or whatever, that would put us at 175 without missing a day for snow, without anything else. That's already right there.
So 2 things, and these are hunches, but I imagine whenever you have 10 days off in a row, the couple days beforehand, kids are going to be rambunctious. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say where that feels nice. I don't know that the average person, parent has 2 weeks vacation to be able to stay home with the younger kids as well. So I completely respect the question and the thought, but I think no matter what, if you're going up against 10 or 14 days, the last couple days beforehand is going to be, it's just a matter of when we're going to do it and when we're going to have it. I know my guys, they're forever using their vacation, and it's a pain in the butt to schedule those 2 weeks because everybody's saving their days and saving them up for when their kids are home from school. So I'm not opposed to looking at it a different way. I just 2 things to throw in that could potentially doing it differently.
So, Steve, quick question. November 30th, which it's a hunting day, but since you can go on Saturdays now, what days were you talking about the elementary wanted,
If that was, yeah, the separate conversation was they wanted, and this is sort of, November 23rd and 24th would be, if we wanted to have conferences, like these would be set aside for conferences. So they would be half days and then they would have conferences in the afternoons and evenings because they wouldn't have kids.
Yeah. I mean, can I?
That's another
That's a
interesting
different-
very week. That's a whole nother week.
That's a whole other thing too. And then half days and parents, to Ben's point. The reason I'm asking these questions is, first of all, the Keystones end on the 18th. So then coming back those, couple days or whatever, and I know a school district beside us had a different calendar than we did this year. It's tough on parents, certainly, any of these days. I just wanted to get a feel for, and I don't want to go less days to school. That wasn't the goal at all. But I just wanted to get an understanding of the thought process with scheduling. And then, if you want to talk about.
well, what I was going to say, couldn't we took November 30th, move it to a 23rd? And
No, November, we're
No,
talking about
November
November 23rd. November 20, the week of Thanksgiving, typically we have a regular day, 23rd, regular day, 24th, and then 25th is an in-service day. We have trade-in and some of the teachers are in, some aren't. But that there's no kids here at all. So the week, it's a 2-day week for the kids feeding into Thanksgiving. And then they get the Thanksgiving break, which we have typically extended into Monday, which you can do that or not, it's fine.
right, but I'm just saying if you took 30th, moved it up to 23rd, that'd be one of the parent conference days they were looking for, correct?
Yeah, that would work. I wouldn't do it. I would move it to the 24th though, because you're not going to bring them. You're not going to have them stay home on
Okay.
the weekend and then come in on one day and then be off for the
But
rest.
even still.
Yeah,
okay.
you could do. That's another possibility. Yes, you could just.
Wouldn't that be adding an additional teaching day? So then we need, like, it would be then shift from a day off to an in-service day, and then we'd have to take that from somewhere.
I could shift the 30th to the 24th, and we're the same. Suzanne, am I right about that? We're neutral, net neutral. That solves.
Students in for one day.
You're bringing them in for one day. Yeah, that's the thing. You bring it. It's bringing them in for one day or bringing them in for 2 half days for the week, or just do the 2 days we're doing. I could argue they're all not good, but I kind of like what we do now.
Let me just throw this out. So if you took the 23rd, made that a half day, make it a teaching virtual, then they would have the rest of the day, the 23rd for parent conferences and the 24th.
No, you're bringing them.
No,
We're not
it'll
bringing it to be a
It's
virtual
just a
day.
virtual day on what they would
So-
be off the rest of the week.
Yes. Yep.
We're
So
not talking about
20,
lost day.
Yeah.
We're not,
That's a lost
we're not getting a year's worth of teaching and, or a year's worth of education in a year if we do too much.
I mean, and
Wasted
again,
day.
to the point, who can come, like what we're taking just 2 days now and saying parents have to schedule just those days, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Which I think is tough on a holiday week.
I'm not recommending. I just, that's what they voted for. So I wanted to bring it to the teachers voted for that. The K4 teachers voted for that. I just wanted to bring it to you. I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I don't know that week's the best.
The recommendation on this calendar, I know where Mr. White stands on half days, but I'm curious, is this also the recommendation as to what our building administrators and teachers, do they feel the same way about half days? I mean, I totally get the reasons why Mr. White believes that, and with busing and all that stuff for sure, but I didn't know if it was like really beneficial for teachers and administrators to have kids half of a day and then have in-service half of the day.
To answer your question, it's tied into those self-directed days. If we can have students in the morning and then have self-directed days, the self-directed time in the afternoon, that works very well for everyone. The question is, do we want to bring kids in for that, or do we want to make those a virtual day? The other thing you can do is have it be a full in-service day at those appropriate times, and then just block off half the time for this teachers to have their self-directed time. It's just a
puzzle to trying to put it all
So
together.
administrators and teachers, if we had a full in-service day and then you guys split that up however you want.
That works just as fine.
Teachers and administrators are happy with that setup as well.
That would work, yes.
Okay. So that's my only question.
So is everybody okay with F in general? Or are we good to leave this and move it forward? And are we leaving it the way it is without adding extra half days for conferences in the fall?
If you guys can, I mean, it seems like that seems unfeasible unless you all can figure something out. And I'm not opposed to it. I know that it is nice for those elementary school teachers to have that midday opportunity to bring in parents. Some parents work during the evening, so it's flexible for that. So I totally get that. But if it seems impossible to put in the calendar, it's like a rock and a hard place. I don't know what to do.
Been through
Figure
this a
there's-
number of times before. I think we just go with what the administration says, unless you see something is really, really out of whack.
Agreed. And we're bringing just F. As is.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're gonna move on and talk a little bit about summer school. Mark and I put together a memo for you that gives you a summary of what we have last year's summer school and what we spent for credit recovery and credit acquisition at the high school, and then credit recovery at the middle school. And you can see all those numbers. We were asked to kind of present those to you, talk a little bit about what you might want to do about that. Just to let you know, the high school is already recommending that we not offer credit acquisition this coming summer. With the new schedule, we don't need to do it anymore. So that we can, if you guys are okay with that, we can take that off the table. I guess the big question is, what do we want to do about offering summer school next summer or this coming summer? Do we want to offer it or modify it in some way?
So the high school is not going to have any summer school. Is that correct?
That we have to talk about that. What we're recommending,
Saying they were taking it off the
credit acquisition. So for I don't know how many years, forever, we've been offering the students the opportunity to take health in the summer for credit. The first time they're not making it up because they failed it. They're taking it, getting it out of the way kind of deal. And they take it in the summer. It helps in the old schedule, it helped them schedule the other classes that they wanted. We have determined we don't need to do that anymore because of block scheduling, the way they're changing some of the things. So we can take that one off the table. The question is, do we want to offer credit recovery? So students that are failing classes at the middle school and or the high school, do we want to give them opportunities to earn those credits back over the summer? And if so, what does that look like? You may remember last year, you voted to have the students and parents start paying for some of that for the first time. We never had them pay anything, and we set forth a plan where they would pay a little bit more each year. We did not make very much money back from that last year. So the question is, what do you want to do moving forward with credit recovery?
So I'll repeat what we shared during budget and finance. One, I'm under the impression, and I feel like this is true, that all of our administrators and our teachers, any student who has like a health issue or they moved in the middle of the year, some sort of extemporaneous, some sort of impact on those students, we'll work with them. Like these students who are failing these courses who need credit recovery are not those students. And so this ends up being the students who are not putting forth full effort during the school year. And I am one who thinks we paid tax dollars to give you the students an opportunity to succeed, that go round. And I think that if they need that opportunity, I think they have to pay for all of it out of pocket, because at that point, we're just taking tax dollars from our taxpayers to educate a kid for a second time that they had an opportunity for the first time. That's kind of where I fall on credit recovery. So if I'm not opposed to us offering it, but I don't want any of our budget to go towards that. Hope it's paid by students.
And Eric, I absolutely agree. I mean, $55,000 could go for, better educational purposes, what we have. Unfortunately, not to be hard bones about it, but if, it starts at the dinner table. So if Johnny or Susie's not coming to school and for attendance or whatever, hit the parents' pocketbook. And I understand, there are families out there that have different circumstances, which, right, what you just mentioned, but at the end of the day, if these children were in college and they failed, they're paying for college courses and, they're not free either. So they come to school 178, 180 days for that education. And I don't think we should be offering any type of summer school unless they want to pay for, full tuition for that.
Yeah, I think I tend to agree. The problem is that how do you set that, right? Because it depends on how many people are going to need credit recovery. So in order for them to fully pay for what it would cost us, it depends on how many are enrolled, right? So we would not be able to say, okay, Johnny, if you want to repeat history, 1 year it could be $1,500 that it's going to cost them. Another year it could be $3,500.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Let's just say if it's, I'm just making up numbers, but if it was $4,000 for the teacher to offer social studies in the summer, if there was one student that needs it, are we charging $4,000? Or if there's 10 students that need it, or if there's 20, like, we don't know that until we know it. And it's very difficult. Mark, would you have another way to figure that out?
Steve, we asked, I didn't see this in your data, and maybe I just missed it. We had the question of how many students that needed it, because need is very flexible. Need, just if they failed at one time but they have like 6 open blocks or 6 open periods in a block schedule. Because
Christian's here Christian, you want to jump up here and help us with the schedule?
How many of those kids who still need credits didn't have space in their schedules?
You understand the question?
I do. So summer school, I'm assuming you understand what I mean when I say like the butterfly effect that happens there, right? So to your point, yes, there's openings in a senior schedule. So that's where they would essentially back up. There's not openings in freshman, sophomore, little bit in junior schedule, but not a ton. Summer school historically is core content. So if it's an elective class, you don't take that in summer school. There's a maximum number of credits historically that would have been transferred to the following year, 2. So if a student had failed all 4 core subjects, they couldn't take all 4 and get all 4. Because let's be honest, credit recovery is not the same thing as being in a room with a teacher. It's just not. So yes, there's room. It affects senior year the most. That's the answer to the question.
So yeah, I'm just asking for maybe your opinion and your professional position. What I stated is that, does it feel ethical or moral, or is by position, do you feel like, well, you don't really understand the situation and it's a lot easier from the outside? Does that make sense? I'm looking for your opinion.
You want to know the morality of summer school?
Well, as to offering it, I mean, you talked about a butterfly effect. I could see where, hey, if there's a senior who is now in a classroom, now I guess ELA is the subject that is most aligned maybe to, like, there's a 9th grade ELA, whereas science and social studies and there's a flexibility of grades that are in those classes. I could see a senior sitting in a class with freshmen and that not being conducive to learning.
Well, what we would do is we would use the schedule to our benefit. So you almost have to take seniors out of the high school summer school analogy. There's a finality to the senior year that is different than every other year. There are ways to assist students who come across the need to get extra credits, or whether that be because of something that happened in life, or they just made a lot of mistakes when they were freshmen, or whatever it is, you can figure that stuff out. But you can use their schedule to kind of explain it. So if a kid takes American Society that they need as a senior and they would fail it in the first semester, everybody over there knows my take on that is they take it again in the spring semester, and I don't really care what it does to their schedule because you need it to graduate. There's a finality to that piece that can be used in lower grades. The things that it would affect negatively, like if you're looking at the pros and cons aspect of it, is obviously the core subjects are going to be ahead of an elective credit. So what ends up happening, and the part that gets starts to spiral a little bit if you're not careful, is that, okay, so Johnny fails ELA the first semester. So do we decide to put him into ELA the second semester, or do we decide to put him into ELA the fall of his sophomore year? If we put him into the spring semester, that means we got to pull a class out of there, which is going to be an elective. So the classes that historically are more of the why someone would come are affected. The other piece it does is it really starts to mess with the course numbers in there. So if a teacher knows they're going to have 27 kids in that class, we just dump a 28th in there. They already didn't have a ton of success. So those are kind of the cons to in the year piece. The cons to the following year piece would be you have, to your point, someone who would be a year older now in a class with a class that would historically be maybe freshman. So really what it comes down to is, do we have the systems in place at the high school to intervene appropriately and catch that stuff? Because part of the summer school conversation is you're not talking about 100 kids. You're not talking about 200 kids. You're not talking about 1,000 kids. The numbers are small. It's as far to that line as my opinion as I want to go in a public meeting.
The other part of this to make it, I don't know, even easier or more complicated is they can do summer school, but not with us. Now
Yes.
we've now learned that Lincoln Edge, which we talked about a little earlier, is offering summer school to any of our students that want to go there for whatever they have to pay. Obviously, they pay what Lincoln Edge wants, and we could use Lincoln Edge as our summer school option. There are that being said, there are other school districts that offer summer school. We have sent them, or not sent them, but we've allowed them to go there as well. They pay, parents pay, and then they let us know that they completed it. That's an option as well. It's just different than what we've done here.
Therapy for Lincoln Edge, Steve.
There is, and did they tell, we just got information about it. I don't.
It's through the LIU.
Yeah, but did they say how much it was?
No, they've had that program historically. It's usually, I mean, I can get the exact number. I don't want to guess. I was going to say it's usually $100 to $200, somewhere in that range.
A class.
If we don't have enough kids in a class to be able to have a teacher to be even or positive, then we reroute it over there. If we have enough students in a class that we're not going to be losing money out of the equation, then we offer it. We find a balance, because the idea of teaching kids to go outside of Spring Grove for anything is something we've all talked about not wanting to do. So we hybrid the two situations. If we can have a fixed price on a class, that we figure out what that is, and we're even or positive for that class, then we offer it. And if we can't, then we ship it over until we can get that part figured out.
That makes perfect sense. The problem with it is we're not going to know how many kids until the last couple of days of school. And it's very like, we're either going to be ready to go with summer school, or we're not going to be ready. Like that. It's a little tricky.
I think if we're offering it, I'm okay to say, yes, we're going to offer it. We need to figure out that relationship with the other school, because they're not going to know either how many people they're going to have until the last couple.
Right. But Lincoln Edge is offering, they're doing it regardless. They're ready to take it. Yeah, they're good. Yeah, they're good. We can do whatever, but.
I had a question. Christian, could you talk a little bit about how the block scheduling helps with the eliminating the online help? I know
Oh, yeah.
students, because then they could take AP classes.
Yeah, no, it does. There's two pieces to it. So, the old schedule, basically what happened was if you wanted to start taking full credit electives, so think of your world language classes or some of your advanced AP classes, because the numbers aren't huge, there's limited sections available for them. So it basically takes the amount of options you have and it funnels it down tremendously. And health being a half credit class, it just didn't fit into that kid's schedule well. So to get that class in, they had to like drop a full credit, which didn't make any sense. Students who were in music, it was a train wreck. Trying to get somebody into ensembles and trying to get them, additional time to work on music and then fit a half credit in and take advanced level classes, you forget about it. That's why summer health started. Now what happens is with the block schedule, music is a set time and we can pair health with another class that a student's going to take. So for instance, driver's ed is a very popular class that people take their sophomore, junior year. Driver's ed and health is a natural pair. We can put that on a course selection sheet. And now instead of messing up an entire block or them having to drop something, it fits into one solid block together. So it allows basically, it helps the student schedule, but then on the teacher side, what it does is where if, let's say I was the health teacher, I might have to teach health for part of a period, and then I might have to deal with study halls or whatever else. Pairing them allows us to basically say, here's 25 kids taking driver's ed, here's 25 kids taking health, and then halfway through the block, they switch. So that teacher actually gets gets a chance to work with twice as many kids in one block. It helps their schedules out on the other end too. Yeah.
I'm going to piggyback on that because I've had multiple parents reach out to me, and for them, they've largely reached out because they're worried about their senior year with a bunch of AP classes, who aren't interested in taking extra phys ed. Many of them would skip phys ed if they had the opportunity. So is this going to hurt? Like, is this also going to solve that problem where they don't have a second half period class to partner that with because they don't want to take the.
So yeah, like one of the adjustments we're making from this year to next year, I talked to a few parents who know me from older kids. They call in and I explained to them this way that we had a lot of half credit courses that fall randomly throughout the day. So it actually messes up 2 blocks. So when we look at the popularity of certain courses and we start to pair them together, like putting 2 gyms into one block, it eliminates some of those problems and actually opens more time up for whatever classes they want to take when they get older.
So you can take a double gym junior year, then you don't need to take a gym your
Hmm?
senior year.
Yep.
Mr. White, I think we're really off track here. We're having all these conversations about what if, asking this question, asking that question, whereas at the end of the written presentation, it talks about planning considerations and next steps for summer 2026. And it lists 6 different things that that the board asked for. Budget impact review, second program offering, the third block scheduling analysis, the third student failure data, the third is enrollment and graduation impact, and the 6th is reporting timeline. We don't even have this information, so why are we asking all these questions and discussing it until we get the full report of what the administration thinks they want to do?
Well, that's a great question, Doug. But we're allowing questions, and as I said earlier, it's going to be a little bit of a long meeting with presentation, so we'll move
Have a
on.
better discussion if we would wait and get the information, I think.
Okay.
Are you suggesting to just kick this to the next DSF next month?
I think so. Otherwise, we're just speculating.
Going blind.
Very good. Does anyone else have any questions? We'll continue on. Thank you.
Let's just go to the DSF in March. Just,
Yes.
Okay. Very good.
Okay. Eric, still up?
Let's see who's next.
Dr. Ludwig. That's, all right, sound good. Moving on. They're, let them do their job.
And then Mr. Wenninger.
And then my final things, we have 4 major trips. All are trips that we've done historically. We've done them in the past. The information for each of them is there. I can answer any questions if you have any.
I think we're good.
Thank you. All right. You ready? Continue on. Business and Finance Committee, we have Budget and Finance. But before we do that, because we do have a guest here, I'm asking if we could move B up, since we have Jesse here from Lobar, and he could do his presentation real quick or whatever he needs to do.
No, I don't think.
Oh, he's not?
See, Jesse.
I'm sorry, I thought he was coming.
No.
Okay, then we'll stay on course then. So Budget and Finance, we have a general fund presentation. Jessica?
Yes, and much like the curriculum, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Zapp for the rest of this section.
Thank you, Mr. White. So I'll get started here. It's a slideshow. So as people are finding their seats, if you think back from September and as we were looking at our budget timeline, we started this budget process with adopting that timeline, finalizing the 24-25 audit, working with the building site administrators, all the departmental leaders over the November, December, January timeline. And we now have for you tonight our first look at our 26-27 budget. So tonight's agenda, we're going to start by reviewing those budget parameters, basically the structure of our expenditures and our revenues. Dovetail right into our preliminary budget. We'll first take a look at our where we feel we're going to end this year at, and then that'll give us the starting numbers for the 26-27, and talk a little bit more about that budget. Continue talking about millage rates, and then finally our next steps. So as we talk about our parameters and basically the structure of our budget, we start with our expenditure side. So you've probably have heard me many years here talking about as we start on the expense side, we start by maintaining our current instructional and as well as all of our service programs. So that's our basis, kind of thinking of like a big circle here, and then we start moving in. So first things that we start looking at is our salary and benefits. That's our primary expenditures. We know that we have a collective bargaining agreement with our professional staff at a 3.2% increase in salaries. PSERS rate that has been certified at 33.59%. This year, it's currently at 34, so a slight reduction. And then we talked about healthcare of that. If you remember from the January discussion, we were talking about that 11 to 15% over the past number of weeks. The business office we've been in discussions with Lincoln Benefit Trust, and we've certified that rate at 11%. Again, in January, we talked a little bit about contracted services with the LIU at 15.6% increase. We know that our York Learning Center at 48.7%. Good news, transportation contract, as you see there, at 0, and our level debt service at $5.1 million. All that that would give us our I'm going to go back to the fourth bullet there, the charter school enrollments and tuition rates. As Dr. Dietrich mentioned, our expenses for next year for that 26-27 would then determine our charter school enrollments and tuition rates, which we know will go up based on this budget. So just a little bit about that. So if you look at the first couple of budgets, as I mentioned in January, that brings us to approximately a $2.2 million increase, just starting that structure of the expenditure budget. So moving on, other side, basically of the road, the revenue side. We know that in that September timeframe, October timeframe, the state released their Act 1 index for the state. It was 3.5%. Spring Grove, our enhanced index was at 4.7%, and we adopted a resolution not to exceed that 4.7%. I talked a little bit about we are seeing some slight growth in our assessments, a little bit less than 1% in our assessed values. And we know that as we build this budget, we're going to be looking at basic and special education, as far as our funding from the state, keeping that at the same level as what we're currently got, depending on how the governor budgets was going to be presented. And we also know that on the federal side, we weren't going to see any increase. So we take that millage rate, as we talked about, currently we're at a 25.40771 mil. If we went up to that 4.7%, that would give us an increase of 1.1941. Adding that to the 25.4071 could give us a potential millage rate of 26.5958. That would yield us approximately a $2.2 million increase in our revenues. So when you think about that parameter, that structure for the revenues, that could be our highest millage rate and the highest amount of revenue we would see if we went to a full tax increase. So going back to that November timeframe, as we were looking at finalizing and the board approved our audit, we know what our starting fund balance was then for this year. So that $4.6 million was our starting fund balance on the unassigned point. On the right there, you see our assigned fund balance totaling at $7.5 million. And I just wanted to make note that we have an unassigned fund balance of 4.6, an assigned fund balance of 7.5. Not included in these numbers and not for discussion tonight is we have our capital reserve, as you see on our treasurer's report, at $1.5 million. We also have a bond fund of $7.9 million. So that is in addition to this. We talked about some of the projects that we have going on. And other capital projects that Mr. Stiles is going to be talking about in the very near future. So we have $1.5 million in our capital reserve, and we have a $7.9 million for all those other potential projects. Not being discussed tonight. We're just talking about the unassigned and the assigned fund balance. So if you, as Mrs. Leppo and I as we look at this year and where we're trending and what we're looking at, possibly ending this year, as we talked about in our Budget and Finance Committee meeting. We're right now anticipating that our revenues are at 87.6 million, our expenses at approximately $86 million. Expenses coming in a lot lower than budgeted, revenues coming in at a slight higher than what budgeted, approximately 350,000 higher in revenue. The expenses are taking the higher than what's budgeted due to what we've talked about in our Budget and Finance Committee meeting, that PDE 363, the charter school, the cost avoidance of those charter schools. So approximately $700,000 to $800,000 of that surplus there, that $1.5 million surplus. The large portion of that is the cost avoidance of our charter schools, as well as some of the staffing, staffing positions that we have not currently filled here as of this year. So we're ending the year with we're anticipating a strong fund balance, ending assigned fund balance of $6.3 million. So what that does is that gives us then our starting point now, as we talked about that structure of the revenues, the expenses. We now have our starting point for the 26-27 of $6.3 million. So our first look at our draft budget for 26-27. Beginning fund balance of $6.3 million. We take in all of our revenue sources, talked about the state, the BEF, SEF, as well as our current tax base at our assessed values. Looking at revenues of $87.9 million. Expenses, as you saw there, that $2.2 million increase, working with all of our site and departmental leaders at $1.3 million, having a deficit of $3.3 million. Now that's the difference between his revenues and expenses. So having a deficit of $3.3 million, still ending with a fund balance there of $2.9 million. Before I go any further, I just want to point out that in the 7 years that I've been presenting budgets, this is the first year that we actually have an ending fund balance that's positive. So over the past number of years, I want to say that in 22, we had a $4.5 million negative, 23, 3.3, and then last year, 900. So some strong, a stronger look now than we've had over the past number of years as far as that ending fund balance, as far as the first draft of our budget. So some good news there. Some things I want to point out. So a little bit better news. If we take, there we go. If we take what Ms. Lepo and I heard from the governor last week, and we take what's proposed as far as our basic ed funding there, that top number, the 74,000, special ed funding, our Ready to Learn Foundation grant, we're looking at some a large, what I want to say, increase there in our state subsidy. We have not included that in this year's budget yet. We did a little bit last year as we got closer to the end of the year. We had some better news from the state as well as our PASBO Foundation, and we felt a lot comfortable in adding some of those numbers. Right now, we have not included that in that first draft that you saw there. The other thing I want to include and talk about is the sale of a fixed asset. So currently, the YMCA project is slated for completion in that May timeframe, depending on when occupancy comes. We're looking at around that May timeframe. Mr. Stiles and I will be working with the administration at the ESC building, and we'll be looking on a move then over to that YMCA to our part of that building. So in the next couple of months after that, we would be doing a sale to the Historical Society. I put down $500,000. I know it's a little bit more than that, but till we end the day, I felt comfortable with $500,000. We know that my best guess would be that it would be sold to the Historical Society in a few months within the year, within that 26-27 calendar year. My recommendation would be, instead of putting that $500,000 into capital reserve, which I just went over the $1.5 million and the 7.9, I would say that would just go into the general fund, and then that would thus reduce our. It wouldn't come in. It would come in as a revenue. So it would be something that we would want to talk at our Budget and Finance Committee meeting in the next couple of weeks, and make sure that asset would be something that we would be comfortable with as a district to putting on the books under revenues. So if you put all those together, we would be possibly looking at an additional $1.1 million in revenue. So putting that $1.1 million here, so still having the same beginning fund balance of $6.3 million, our revenues now increased by that $1.1 million. So looking at revenues of $89.1 million, still having the same number there for expenses at 91. So now having a deficit of 1.1 million lower than what we currently have. And again, having a what I would call a stronger fund balance than we've shown over the past number of years, of a ending assigned fund balance of as you can see there, slightly over $4 million. Still having our assigned fund balance there of $7.5 million. So I'm going to stop there before I get into the last couple of slides as far as our next steps, and see if there's any questions on anything that I presented.
No, an asset for 500 grand. What's the reason you don't just eliminate that in debt somewhere? Help not make the budget go up. If you're going to sell the building for 500,000, why not just get rid of $500,000 of debt instead of throwing it into the budget? You think we're going to?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
1% tax increases.
Better spot instead of spending or asking for 500 more out of the taxpayers.
No, I don't think you maybe not heard me correctly, or maybe I'm not understanding you. We wouldn't show that. We would show that as revenue on under a sale of a fixed asset, and not that wouldn't be that wouldn't be an additional increase to our taxpayers. It would show as a positive.
Yeah.
Are you asking why we wouldn't pay down
Yeah,
debt?
why would
we
you
have,
pay
like,
down
on the
debt
balance sheet?
instead of throwing it into the general fund?
Yeah. Like long-term debt?
You could, but
Yeah,
right now
that's a
we're
good-
showing that we're in a deficit, which means you would have to counter that by raising taxes,
Yeah.
which
You're
would
right.
be about 1%.
Right. Good. Okay. Are you clear, Mike? Yeah.
So that 500,000, could you put that?
Our CAM cost to the YMCA would be a monthly charge. I it would be something that we would budget. I don't think that that would be a good recommendation to dump that total $500,000 into one lump sum of a CAM cost. Right now, our CAM cost would be I forget how many thousand square feet it would be at. It would be something that we could talk about. Well, we would have that with our ready with our capital reserve and our bond fund. Again, I think our facilities, the reason why I'm recommending that, because I feel that our facilities are in decent shape. There's as far as if we look at the possible road behind the high school and the maintenance facility that we're looking at, even if we hit that $4 million, mark, we still have approximately $3.9 million in a bond fund, plus a $1.5 million capital reserve. Based on what Mr. Stiles and I have put together as far as that capital reserve list, we are good for at least the next 5 to 7 years. So to me, it makes sense to reduce the possibility of a tax increase next year.
Our YMCA's are going to be substantially less. Our costs at the YMCA are substantially less than what they are at the ESC.
I feel absolutely that if you take a look at some of the days like we've had with the wind and the windows and our heating system and HVAC, yes.
And
I
in
feel-
this budget, we have it budgeted for us to be at the ESC, not at the YMCA, or we have it budgeted to be split.
Right now yeah, I want to make sure right now we have it budgeted at the ESC. We have not reduced anything as far as, like, for example, the insurance on the ESC, the elevator, the simplex
Sooner we get
all
it,
those systems.
sooner we get into the YMCA, the sooner we will be over budgeted for what it's going to cost. because we're
Correct.
gonna get a
And
correction.
Mr. Lepo and I, we didn't feel comfortable yet eliminating all of those budget numbers out of the ESC just based on the when we were going to move, when it was going to be the sale. There's other in the weeds things we didn't feel comfortable removing all of them yet, but yes.
And then some of the stuff, and this goes back to the calculator conversation we had about coming out in the first DSF in March. This does not include any revenues, because I think historically we run 1.7 to $2.3 million on the maintenance side of it. That's not pulling anything out of that budget either, that we could pull out and use the money that is allocated in the other bucket of money that's at $7.9 million. So have we looked at the projects and the stuff that we have in this budget and asked ourselves, what can we pull out of the maintenance money?
Yes. So we have some of them. For example, Mr. Ank is going to be talking about an E-rate program. I know that was that cabling, and we talked to Mr. Stiles about any other possible projects that we can pull out through that or the PCCD grant. So we have done that.
So this already has us pulling money for some of those projects.
Correct.
Out of that 7.9.
Correct.
How much of it? How much you?
I don't know, Mr. Ank, what that cabling project.
That's gonna be somewhere in $40,000, that the E-rate fund does not reimburse us for.
Okay.
gonna have that for the first DSF. When we do the calculator stuff.
So any other questions on this draft of the budget? Again, more discussion in our Budget and Finance Committee meeting on this. Yes.
So can you go back a couple slides, please, to the, keep going. That one. Surplus of 1559603.
Correct.
If we had not raised taxes, we would have had the most balanced budget we've had in a really, really, really long time, because we collected approximately $1,584,000 in revenue. So that would have been the closest we ever would have been to a completely balanced budget if we had not raised taxes. You're smiling.
Thank you, Mr. Ramsey.
Yes.
Any other questions?
Just to add to that, because I think that would be great, but there were a number of things that were in our budget that we did not end up doing. And if we would have ended up doing those, we would have running another deficit.
Correct. And at the time when we, like we are right now, we have the governor's proposed budget. We're sitting here, that proposed budget wasn't approved until November, and we didn't find out until November that there was such a cost avoidance for that charter school. So we're sitting here again with, we're not quite sure what to tell you as far as for the state's budget, but
And I say that every year. It's not fair to us. This process is designed for it to not be able to work. We have to effectively play the lottery to some level, and it's not fair because we don't know what they're going to give us. We don't know what we're going to get. And when we get back into this conversation, whenever it happens next year, I'm going to raise my hand and say that again, because it gets contentious sometimes. And there's 9 different people that have 9 different views on what we should do, but there is no clear path and there is no right way because there's too many variables in that math problem.
I would suggest we move on, given time and energy of the people in the room, so we can take this back up at Budget and Finance, right, at the risk of us being here till midnight.
okay. I'll continue moving on, but as I mentioned, still really strong for the position that we're in currently right now. My next steps are, again, continue this millage rate discussion. As Mrs. Wilson mentioned, we're going to continue to move forward at our Budget and Finance Committee meeting. Ms. Lepo and I will continue to investigate the state funding, what that means to us, any possible new information that we can bring back, as well as still taking a look at our current financial review and considering that impact on next year's budget, as we talked about there, a $1.5 million surplus. We'll continue to look at that and make sure that as we're looking at that for next year, that we hone that number in as close as possible. And then our last step then is to schedule our next Budget and Finance Committee meeting with Mrs. Watersdorf, which we'll be putting out here very soon. Any final questions before I leave? Okay, thank you. Continue.
Yeah, keep
Okay.
going.
So you do have in front of you, and as you have read, the LIU proposed general operating budget. So every year we talk about this, that the LIU has 2 budgets, one that is their general operating budget, and then there's a piece of that school districts by law need to approve. Their general operating budget is going up by 3.4%. The piece of the budget that we have to approve by law by school districts has been eliminated. So in their budget, so that line item now is 0. They're showing a 0% tax increase. That is a savings to the district of approximately $5,000. But it is a piece that we still have to approve, even though it's a 0% increase by law. We still have to approve that budget. So we're asking for your recommendation to continue to move that forward. Now, that doesn't mean that as far as our cost to the LIU, that $5,000 we will be eliminated. any additional services that through like Dr. Ludwig's office that we'll be requesting from the LIU will be at their rate. So there'll still be a charge with the LIU. I just wanted to make sure that was clear. I know everybody's tired, wanted to hear me correctly, that I didn't say no no increase to the LIU, no increase to the operating budget that we supported. So any questions on that?
Keep going.
Okay, what's next? As I mentioned, Chris Ank has a memorandum as well as a proposal there put together for you for some E-rate E-rate program through the district. It's a recabling of Springer Intermediate. If there's any questions, I'm sure that you read that memo. If there's any questions that specifically that Chris can answer on the program or on the cabling, or if there's anything I can answer, we're here for you. Okay, continue moving forward. We have another memorandum, this time from Dr. Ludwig. As you know, Mr. Lehman has left the district a few days ago, and we're still in the search for his replacement. In the meantime, we have reached out to the PA's Principals Association. As you see there in the memo, there's a rationale to what we're asking for the individual, as well as the agreement with PA's Principals Association, Cost Association. All that is mentioned into the memorandum, as well as the agreement with the PA's Principals Association. Is there anything that that Dr. Ludwig can answer for you at this time on the proposal? Okay, and then last, as Mr. Ramsey mentioned a little bit earlier, we are applying for a school facility grant. Part of that is a resolution that the board needs to adopt, just basically granting myself, authority to be able to sign any documents if we do receive that grant. But this is the last step in the process, is to get a resolution passed from the school board so that we can continue to move forward to finish out and apply for that grant.
Is that the $500,000?
Yeah, it's from it was brought by Kristen Phillips. So school facility grants, $500,000 would be the minimum. So again, as I mentioned, I think in the buildings and grounds, I put it on for the latest proposal that we had at slightly over 5 million, 500,000. It's getting late, 500,000.
It was up to 50% of the project too?
Correct. Yep. Okay.
You say minimum is 500,000.
But there's a 50-50 match is what you asked.
Right.
What if we only spend $500,000 total on the road?
That's what I was getting ready to say. That
Correct. We would only receive half of that. So it's up to the 50%.
Right. If the project's
right,
$500,000, we get a quarter. We get $250,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're not. It's not requiring us to spend $500,000.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry if I said that wrong.
So what are you applying for?
Well, I'm applying for that full amount of 500,000.
Okay.
Because based on the current the current design, as well as the current engineering scope of service, that's the best that I can go off of right now. Yeah. If we don't need the full amount, it'll just be returned. Yeah. Yeah, we won't make money on it, or we won't have to spend it and say, hey, we need a $1 million road. But yes, okay.
Our chances of getting it.
It's a competitive grant. I don't know, because competitive grants, I don't know what other districts out there have, school facility. It's a long application. I want to say 30 plus pages of and lots of, as I've been using Steve's creative writing skills on filling it out. So, you never know who's going to take the time to fill it out. Some schools have grant writers. We don't. But it really depends on what, so I don't want to guess what our chances are, but I'm hoping they're higher than.
We're talking about doing this road based on the grant. What happens if we don't get the grant?
We're not going to start the project of the road or looking into it until we get the answer on the grant.
Okay.
Yep.
Mark, real quick, can you list on that grant the three problems we had this year?
That's how I started the narrative. Yes.
Right. So tell the board real quick of the three items of why it's necessary we need this road.
Yeah, so one of the, thanks, Mr. White, the way I started the grant was, one of the issues that we've talked about this road for numerous years, but one of the things that really hit hard this year were three items. One was the officer's, death in September, where we saw a tremendous backlog of parents as well as students and buses. And even though the situation, we controlled it very well, but it would have been just like the next issue of the gas line and then having the mulch fire, having three different scenarios there where we could have used a secondary access to be able to get students out in case something did happen. Like, for example, that gas line, if that gas line would have been a few feet closer to the high school, things would have been different. EMA coordinators that were there on site had us evacuate the Spring Grove Elementary. We were close to evacuating other sites, but that was the closest. If it would have been, just like I said, a few feet closer to the high school, we would have been evacuating the high school, possibly closing that road down. It would have made sense to have a rear access road to get all those kids out of there, all that staff out of there. So it's just something that has come up numerous times and 3 times this year. So thanks, Mr. White.
All right, moving on, buildings and grounds. Ben?
I think we covered most of this already, but Mr. Stiles wants to get into the stuff that we didn't. Please, sir.
And Mr. Zapp, we can add a fourth thing to that list. We had a delivery truck that was jammed up in the rear parking lot of the high school last Friday afternoon that needed assistance getting out right before dismissal. Everybody has a report review in front of them. Nothing was changed since last Monday's buildings and grounds on the access road, the walk-in cooler and freezer storage. We have the next item. We're going to discuss the option. We have more information on that. Maintenance facility, Shaw Engineering was granted authorization to do the stakeout. No update on the rear access road since your approval. And the YMCA project, utilities were marked out last Wednesday, and the school district and the YMCA are presently working with First Capital to obtain CAD drawings and start the RFI process with the site work. Is there any questions on the review? Okay, moving forward on the next item, during the process of the final layout for the engineer for the walk-in coolers, it was determined he had concerns on the space between the actually cooler boxes and the existing retaining wall. I think you have some renderings of what it would look like without anything. And you have a rendering with the panels that are similar to what is above skirted on the high school gym and the auditorium. So we have 3 options to consider. One would be do nothing, and then we wouldn't need to do anything for the next voting meeting. Another option would be the skirting, which we call the rain guard wall on the north side, and that cost was $14,512.21. And then the option that they put together based on the Buildings and Grounds Committee meeting last week was the sealant, installing a termination bar, counter flashing, and applying sealant. And the cost came back at $2,950 for that, just a little less than $3,000. So just looking for direction for the next voting meeting. We do nothing and ride it out and see how that goes with the retaining wall and monitor it. We put the skirting on the same as the high school auditorium and gym for $14,500, or we just do the flashing and sealant for just $3,000.
No matter what, it's going to come out of the allocated money for building projects, correct?
From the bond fund, yes.
All right, Thank you, Bill. In fact, you might as well just stay there.
He's looking for direction.
Yeah, but we need,
And my little vote is the flashing, because it solves the problem and it's the cheapest option. It's like so far out of the way, right? I mean, it's on the the only people who are really gonna see this are like your staff.
Those will be the only people that see it. And we also determined the components will not be affected by it because the components that run the cooler are internal to the unit. So it's a visual component of being able to see it. If we've eliminated that component, I agree. I'm okay with the flashing, but I'm one of 9 people. Is there anything that's going to be different between now and the next meeting? Or are you asking because we're going to try to continue to move forward with it?
Suzanne, we just need guidance of how we want to put on the agenda for the action item.
So is there anybody that disagrees with putting it on for the 2,900 and some odd change option? There you go.
Thank you.
All right, well, you might as well just stay there. So moving on, we have policy, Rodney. While Bill's standing there, he could answer the question. Yeah, you might as well go ahead.
This, the wrestling mat donation, is that what we're on? Yep.
Yeah.
So does everybody have a copy of what that looks like? Any questions? The project title was the Spring Grove Area High School Fallen Officer tribute mat. It was donated by alumni. The cost is, it has not been ordered yet. We're looking for approval tonight.
What's the reason for the?
Well, I had to, I had to learn myself on that today myself, Mr. Ritz. The green stands for military and border patrol. Orange is search and rescue. The gray is for correctional officers. Yellow is for dispatchers and 911 centers. Blue is for police, law enforcement. Red, firefighters, and white is EMS paramedics and nurses. And it has our Spring Grove logo on it, and the CMB 349 is Officer Cody Becker's initials and badge number.
Free and great.
How do we send a thank you?
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So Bill can move ahead with that. We don't have to wait 2 weeks before we move ahead. Hear that, Bill? You can move ahead.
Move forward.
Yep.
Okay, and so we can move forward. Next thing is personnel. Nicole?
So you have a memo in front of you that is to present a comparison between adding a 6-hour substitute position, coordinator position, or a contracting substitute coordination service to the HR department and Spring Grove. In the memo outlines the 2 courses of action and some other information about pros and cons. Just a little bit, and I'll try to be brief, information that kind of led us to this, these 2 courses of action. Currently, we're at about an average fill rate of 66% per month, which means that about 1/3 of our absences are unfilled every day for our teacher and classified staff that support those teachers. So with that, we have 1 substitute coordinator that dedicates about 3 to 4 extra hours a day on top of her part-time job as an attendance secretary. And then we have our HR generalist that also dedicates about that much time per day, aside from her regular duties on managing substitutes. Sarah Thompson is the attendance secretary. She gets up in the morning, starts about 5:30, 5:45, works until about 7. At that time, she does her attendance secretary job, and then Tracy takes over. We still all communicate together. And then about 1 o'clock now, Sarah again takes over that role of coordinating substitutes. It's a lot of manual entry, a lot of manual updates to all of the systems, coordination with all of the principals, all of the staff to make sure we're trying to fill all those vacancies. Sarah sometimes spends time as late as 9 o'clock at night working on the next day's vacancies, and Tracy and I communicate with her as well to try and fill those vacancies for the next day. In addition to that, Tracy does all of the onboarding for all of our substitutes, classified and professional staff. And that takes her about 2 to 3 hours per day from start to finish for each substitute that we onboard. And then after that point, they'll come in for some sort of onboarding or orientation training with Tracy. And then Sarah will take over after that on the coordination and substitute fill stuff. It leaves little time for actual training for our substitutes. And it is not inconsistent. Everybody appreciates Sarah and Tracy. They work very hard at what they do, but it's a little inconsistent when it is one person starting in the morning, someone else taking over during the day, and then another person finishing off at night. So that's kind of what led us to the courses of action that we're presenting to you guys. Either a 6-hour substitute coordinator position or that substitute contracting service, right? And you'll see a little bit about the pros and cons of each on that second page of the memo. It talks about responsibilities for that substitute coordinator, keeping in mind that despite that coordinator being a 6-hour position, there is still going to be requirements from Tracy and myself to support that substitute coordinator with all of the needs of the substitutes and all of the needs of the coordinator to work to fill those positions. The good thing about it is, yes, it's a Spring Grove employee that is working with all of these substitutes. And we know that is very important to the staff. We also know that it helps build those stronger relationships with substitutes. The cons, again, go back to that limited ability to support substitute staff with the extra things that they need, the training that the substitutes require, the extra care with onboarding, the clearances, the other training that they have to do before they can even onboard with the school. Assigned work hours. So part of the issue we face is with getting past that 68% fill rate. Right now, we're generally at about average of 22 teacher vacancies per day. And we're at about 21 active teachers that are taking more, or substitutes that are taking more than one role throughout the year. So it does make it a little more difficult to fill all of those vacancies through the active recruiting that we're doing and the onboarding that we're doing. With a contracted service, we would still work tirelessly to maintain that Spring Grove feel for the subs, whether it's meeting them at the schools, making sure they have all the tools and resources they need to be successful when they get to that school. But I think that as far as recruiting subs, I think they have a bigger pool, a bigger area, more experience and more people to actively recruit those substitutes throughout the county to work at Spring Grove. They also have a bigger pool of representatives to help support Spring Grove and the substitutes when it comes to onboarding, filling vacancies, and working with us to try to increase that 68% fill rate to 70 or 75% fill rate. So any questions you guys have, I can try to address them.
Yeah, I appreciate all the pros and cons and everything. And I heard the presentation before, very nice. I guess two questions. Are you going to give us the bottom yearly costs for each option, the two option? And are you going to make a recommendation as to which ones you think would work best for human resources?
Yeah, so what we did was we looked at those average number of vacancies per year for those teachers, and we looked at 75% fill rate. And Jen was great with doing some math on what that costs the district on average per year. So that costs, not to include paying a substitute to come in every day, not to include the extra training for substitutes, and all the other costs associated. It's about, let me get my glasses, sorry. It's about, with the addition of the coordinator, it's about $530,000, $531,000.
I think what he's asking is the substitute coordinator. How much would the substitute coordinator cost if we're gonna hire one, or versus the automated system, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
So to be honest, whether hiring a substitute coordinator would look to be about 50,000 a year. That being said, you're always going to have the automated service unless you're talking about a contractor. Is that
An
what you're
outside
referencing?
contractor. So what would it cost us to pay a vendor to do the substitutes?
So it would cost about 506,000 a year.
No. You have an employee.
Yes.
You're saying that'd be about 50-60,000 a year to employ a 6 month or a 6 hour
Yeah.
employee. How much would it be if we went to the contractor?
I'll let Jen take that.
Yeah, so what Hope is combining is, she's combining the salary of the 6-hour position along with the sub cost, because that would be our total cost. It would cost the district, and Jen can explain it a little bit better in detail. And then if we would go to an outside contractor, they would pay the same cost, and then they would have a fee. So those are the two fees that Hope just gave you. Go ahead, Jen.
Yeah, so the way the fee structure works for a substitute calling consultant group is they take our sub rate, which is $125 per day, and they mark it up. It's that simple, 31.5%. So when Hope was talking about that, the calculation was based on a 75% fill rate. So let's say whether we hire a coordinator and have one person designated, or whether we go with an outside contractor, we are calculating these numbers on a 75% fill rate, because ultimately the goal is to increase that fill rate. So what the contractor does, again, it takes $125 a day. It took our total teacher absences of 2,929. We were working with the same numbers. The paraprofessionals at 630 days, and our instructional assistants, because these are everyone inside our classroom that we need to fill to keep that classroom running effectively and not have a disruption. So we took, and we can pass this out or send it as backup for you to understand it clearly. We used the total number, and it was based on an average of several years of the number of days that we're trying to fill throughout the school year. Then we took a percentage of the 75% and we calculated the cost. So it was a straight, this is what the contractor does. It's a markup of 31.5%. This is what it would cost if we kept it in-house. The biggest cost to the district by keeping it in-house is we have to pay the subs, the PSERS rate, which is 34%. So if you look at it from that standpoint alone, their fee is less than what we pay for PSERS. What I did in the calculation was include the amount we get back in the subsidy for the retirement. So I reduced that down to about 17%, because we do get, reimbursed for the retirement piece of it. So again, if you look at it from a cost perspective, and we just say all in, and we can provide this breakout for you, it pretty much comes to close to a break even. The outside contractor, again, all things that I just said, would cost the district $506,853. It would cost the district to do the same job $530,000 917. So it would be an additional cost of about $20,000 to keep it in-house with the personnel expense.
So, if we outsource it, we're spending how many hours a day now doing it?
Well, the coordinator position is 6 hours, but so that's what that price was based off.
That
The coordinator
coordinator is-
position was based off 6 hours.
Plus the people that are currently doing it are
Correct.
still
That
doing it.
and exactly, that time has not been calculated in the equation because we're still going to have the onboarding piece, the train, like all that's still going to fall in the district. So there is still personnel time from both Tracy and Hope that's not part of the calculation.
And I think what you're asking, the amount of hours that we're taking away from other duties and responsibilities at HRs would be decreased because the outside contractor would be doing the recruiting and hiring, the onboarding, all the clearances, all the training. And they would be tracking all of that stuff in communication with us. So it would be a collaborative effort, but yes, the amount of time that is added to that 6 hours would be reduced.
So the 6-hour position would be an increase to what we're currently doing now by how much?
I would say,
We're looking for a number of hours, right,
Yeah.
Ben?
Hours or dollars per hour?
Yeah.
Like, what is the dollar amount that we're looking to add?
Well, again, we calculated the salary based on whatever the starting rate is for that classification. I can't recall. I don't,
For the 6-hour employee?
plus it benefits, correct?
Right.
So that is 47,778. Is that what you're looking for?
Yes.
Okay.
So, so we're gonna add $48,000 and continue to do it the way that we're doing it now with some adjustments because it's gonna free up people's time. And it cost $20,000 more than if we outsource it. And the overall advantage of keeping it in-house is we have a consistent person that can build relationships, which is a topic that has come up in years past that effectively should be able to help get us a better rate if we have the right person doing it, is where I feel like. So I'm just trying to pull it all together and go, it's an additional $48,000 that we didn't have planned for, but it would cost us $20,000 more to do it that way than it would to do it outsourced. That is the real pro and con. And then do you have a recommendation to follow up with what Mr. Stein said? Do you feel like we're better off adding the $48,000 position or changing what we're doing and outsourcing it? So hold on, Hope, before you answer that. So quick question. Since I spend so much time at the ESC now, and I'm just asking, I see Suzanne, Kelly, Aaron, Adrian, all doing the front desk. So could this individual do the front desk and her job? And we could basically, we have a superintendent secretary doing a front desk, which is just terrible. And then we have, other ladies doing it that have jobs there. So I'm just not comprehending, but we have other subs that work in there, but don't fill in. So can we make sense of adding that position and moving on, where she can do that job and the subs job?
so I can't speak on the front desk piece, but what I can say is with the 6-hour position, that's all substitute work. And I can't say what gets done at the front desk during the day because I'm not down there. But the young lady that's doing the job now, Sarah, she does that before she even gets to work in the morning. She does 1.5 hours of work. And then when she's off at 12:30, she gets home and does another 1.5 to 2 hours work. And then she's working at night. So the work that she's doing is not during her regular duty day, if that makes sense. The additional work that Tracy does with all of the onboarding stuff, she is doing also in addition to all of the things that she is doing. So the small part of, if we did a 6-hour position, there may be a small part where they are at the ESC. Could they sit down at the front desk? Most definitely. I mean, they could, but that's a small portion of the time that they spend coordinating with subs, because the bulk of it is in the morning and in the afternoon.
Yeah, I feel like it's 10:15 at night. We are all exhausted at this point, including you. I don't think we have respectfully what we need to make any decisions moving forward at this point. So we need, I would love to see that paper that you had in front of you. So if we could get the differences of cost, Hope, and from what I'm hearing you say, Hope, it seemed to me that you were leaning towards the not the actual 6-hour person, if I was hearing you correctly, because there was some pros in terms of educating, et cetera, those types of things. So give us the pricing and then give us your recommendation and the whys. And then we can pick it back up, I feel like, right?
I feel if we're very soon going to have budget and finance meeting or conversations, that presentation said $5.3 million projected expense increase. And so I know that this is it can be very beneficial, but I kind of want to have that conversation amongst everything else, because if I'm approving this position and then that means that we need to cut something else somewhere along the line, I have an issue there too. So I feel like I want to have more information and then kick it down the road.
Come back
Yeah.
together. Yep.
And that's good clarifying on the numbers. You said that we average 22 subs per day.
So we average about 22 teacher vacancies per, of our active subs, about 21 of them, teacher subs, are what we regularly get to fill our teacher positions.
I want, are you finished, Ben? I don't want to interrupt.
What's the rate that we're not filling and the rate we're trying to get to? Did I hear you say 67 and 75%?
At about 68% average, we would like to get to about 75 for the fill.
So, and this is going to piggyback off what Eric said. We're talking about one more teacher a day out of the 22 that we're not filling.
Why would we want to get to 100%? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, we would, yeah, I mean,
It's getting substitutes. They're just not out there.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah,
yeah.
ultimately, we want 100% of our classrooms teachers covered. The problem is if we're averaging 22 out and we only have 21 subs, there are days that are bad days that we have 28, 30 or more out because it's an average. So there's days that we have more. Those days we are, multiple people at each building that we're short, and the principals and teachers are scrambling to make that happen. So that's the big problem. We use, and that percentage, I could be wrong, Lise, but that percentage is including support staff as well.
for the fill rate?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, that fill rate that we're like talking about includes support staff as well. So it's probably better to separate the two conversations because they're different and the impact is different. And so just putting it out there.
So could we get information on what happens? Like if 5 teachers aren't, and for the next conversation, budget and finance or whatever, if 5 teachers aren't filled, what happens? And number 2, we were told at the last meeting, the Teachers Association was against the contractor and we don't have that information. So we also need that, please.
I was going to say the last piece because Steve and I meet with SGEA leadership monthly, and back in the fall when they heard that this was a possibility, I would say adamantly said that they oppose this, that they meet with their counterparts in all of their districts in the surrounding York County districts. And I don't want to say unanimous, I don't want to say something that's true, but overwhelmingly said that they don't support moving in this direction. Bill felt compelled, and you just took the words right out of my mouth, Jess, that at least the association is opposed to moving to a vent service. For what it's worth. And I think, Nicole, you're right on. We need more time.
All right, well,
I hate to ask another question, but either explain now or then you send us some more information about, you said about the piecer, we don't pay, they don't pay the piecer.
Correct. The contract, the outside contractor would not pay the Peasers rate because they wouldn't be a district employee. What Jen meant was,
Would that hurt getting substitutes then because they wouldn't be getting money into?
It
the
actually,
Peacer?
it actually helps because retired teachers and people who are not trying to get a pension can work and they can work as much as they want and not affect.
yeah, so if a teacher left today and said, I'm thinking about subbing, they would have to wait 60 days and then before they could continue to sub for the district. So they could start tomorrow for the contractor and not worry about anything with their Peasers.
Our teachers, we don't get. Oh, do we?
No.
That's not a difference either way.
I thought they couldn't sub.
They can.
well, then now,
They can
You don't
now.
have to drag it out. They have to explain that in the note.
Thank you, Hope.
all right, well, thank you, Hope, and let's move on. Let's see, any planning items to be considered for future agendas? Anyone have anything?
Oh, much shorter meetings.
I told you it's gonna be long.
The
Okay.
the irony of him becoming president and then we had the longest meeting we've ever had
Hey,
is kind of
I
pretty great.
gave everyone a heads up.
It is.
Once whatever. Okay. Adjourn.
I did.
All in favor?
Aye.